Seven Republicans take the stage tonight, vying for the opportunity to be one of the candidates in the general election in 2024. We're going to cover that here today on a special edition election episode of Speechless. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Speechless. This is a special edition episode. As many of you know, the GOP presidential primary is tonight, in which seven candidates will be taking the stage. Not all of them, but seven will be taking the stage to discuss the issues facing Americans. Those seven are Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, Vivek Ramaswamy, the tech entrepreneur, Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina and UN ambassador, Mike Pence, the former vice president, Chris Christie, former governor of New Jersey, Tim Scott, the South Carolina senator, and Doug Burgum. Who the heck is he? He's the North Dakota governor. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like this video. Smash that like button, everybody. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Hit that notification bell. Ring it to all. Comment what you're thinking. This is going to be interactive. Obviously, we're live right now, getting ready for the presidential debate. So comment. I want to see you guys up in those comments. We will be hitting those and everything under the sun, and share it with your friends. If they need to find a way to watch the debate tonight, we will be streaming it on this channel, obviously with live commentary. And I'll even, if you guys don't want the commentary, I'll put it in the description as well. Thank you guys again for tuning in. To qualify for this second debate, candidates needed at least 3% support in two national polls, or 3% in one national poll, as well as two polls from four of the early voting states. That's Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina. They also needed at least 50,000 unique donors, with at least 200 of those from 20 states or territories. They also needed to sign the RNC pledge, promising to support the party's eventual nominee, whoever that may be. Obviously, one candidate who is currently leading in the polls but has not signed that will not be attending. That's Donald Trump, and said he will be at a rally, I believe, in Michigan, talking to an auto workers union. But I might be corrected by that once I bring on my good friend, longtime friend. You love him, you know him, formerly talented, Josh Bender. How's it going, buddy?
What's up, buddy?
Are you ready?
Yeah, it's been a long day.
Yeah, it's been a long day. What did you do today, Josh?
I had work. I was running on 4 hours sleep. I was up way too late, just couldn't sleep. Then I had work all day, had rehearsal after work. Now I'm doing this. I'm expected for 2.5 hours of this. I'm eating as we go, so I apologize. I just haven't had a chance to really sit down all day. I spilt water as I ran over here. It was a whole thing.
Absolutely. I get it. Well, everybody, light up that comment section. Let us know, who do you think will win in this debate? What do you think is going to happen? Many people are saying that they think that these debates are a waste of time simply because they have already signed, sealed, delivered Trump the nomination. Josh, what do you think about that?
I think it's absolute BS. I mean, just to be frank, I do. I think these debates are essential. I think if you want to be the nominee, if you want to be the next president, you got to stand by your record. You got to be able to face other opponents. You got to be able to face the voters. I think Donald Trump and Trump's, huge supporters, the ones who think he's already won, are just saying, well, people know who he is. People understand that. I get that. But there's still a lot of questions I want answers, the things he didn't get done, or why he did certain things poorly even. I know he's not going to say that, but he did do things poorly. I just want to hear that. And by ducking these debates, I mean, I think I said it last time, but I'm going to say it again. I think he's afraid. I think he's afraid to face the voters. I think he's afraid to face his other opponents, because he knows if he gets on that stage with, especially people like Ron DeSantis, he's not going to have a record to really stand on.
Totally understand that. Obviously, I'm in a similar boat in terms of I'm not happy that he's not attending the debate. I think that every candidate should be subjected to having to go up against the other candidates. But if you're not necessarily thinking the same way as us, if you think Trump has already basically won the nomination, and that you think that he for whatever reason, it's a good decision that he is not attending the debate, I have that text and call line right there, 309-451-9299. I can tie you in through the call, 309-451-9299. After the debate, I will be more than happy to offer up the link to join the conversation about what we thought about the debate, so we can bring multiple people on through the stream. Josh, you got a question from a buddy. Paul, did what poorly? What did Trump do
poorly? What poorly? I could break it down to three things. One, COVID. Just his response to COVID was terrible. Giving the country over to Dr. Fauci was his biggest mistake. He will never live that down. I hate to say that, but he will never live that down. That was the worst decision he could have done. Increasing the debt during that time by $8 trillion, funding all the mail-in voting that he then said was the reason he lost the election. I mean, he did that. He should have stuck to his guns a little more. He didn't. So I'm going to say that. 2, building the wall. He started it. He never finished it. That was his promise. His big promise was, I'm going to build the wall. I'm going to build the wall. He never did it. That's done pretty poorly. 3, and I think it's just kind of I hate to go back all the way to 2016, but he never tried to prosecute Hillary Clinton. He said the minute that he got into office, he was going to launch a special counsel, investigate Hillary Clinton, and get her put in jail, lock her up. That's what he chanted at every rally. The minute he won the election, he said, well, never mind. I don't like that. I think that he did that pretty poorly. Now, I will also admit that he did a lot of phenomenal things. The economy was in the best place we've ever seen. I think his economy was incredible. I remember, being a college kid at that time, being able to drive around because gas was $1.20, and oh, sweet, I could just go drive around and have fun. I mean, the economy is a huge one. I think that when you look at, the military and the way that he handled foreign affairs, really good. He didn't start a new war. He got us out of some wars. I think if he was in charge of the Afghanistan pullout, it would have been much, much better. I think overall, just making us respect a little more on the world stage, and people knew that he was kind of a force to be reckoned with. I got to give respect on that, but I think he has a lot that he did that wasn't as great. Some of his hiring, such as Chris Wray, very, very bad. I want him to hear what he has to say about that. He hasn't really answered for any of that. So that's where I'm at with it. I know it's kind of rambling, but
No, absolutely. And I appreciate the question, Paul. And we're getting into a little bit of debate in the comments section. I see he says the wall was under construction when Biden stopped it. And obviously, both Josh and myself have been relatively clear that if the election were held today, I would be voting for Ron DeSantis. I'm pretty sure John will vote, or Josh. I've known you for so long and I can't even remember your name. No, but Josh is pretty set in his ways. I'm convincible, but I'll tell you in terms of record, DeSantis is somebody I'm heavily leaning towards. But again, I always encourage disagreement. I always encourage conversation. So please, please, please feel free before the debate to text it or call in at 309-451-9299. The number's right there on the screen for you guys. 309-451-9299. I'll be checking the text lines consistently. I'll be checking the phone lines. I'd always appreciate the text or call. And after the debate, I will launch a link into the comment section that will allow people to join a panel in which we will discuss this further. Ryan McKinsey asked a question: would DeSantis do any of this on a national scale? Any of the things that you said Trump failed to do?
I absolutely think he would, because he's doing it on a state scale. I think, and I understand state versus national, very different, but I think he knows how to successfully do it. He knows how to lead a good conservative movement, a good, strong leadership that gets people who, might not normally budge, willing to budge. I think if you look at Florida, the economy's still booming. The illegal immigrants that went there, he shipped them off to Martha's Vineyard. He helped send people to the border to secure it. He immediately disregarded Dr. Fauci and said, this is not the evidence we're getting is not what Dr. Fauci is saying. The Trump administration, on his way out, sent a letter to Florida and said, stop following DeSantis, and what he's doing is going against Fauci. And obviously they didn't. DeSantis didn't stop. So he definitely would.
Absolutely. And there's more and more comments coming in, and I appreciate them, guys. And while a lot of the conversation when it comes to the 2024 election has been focused significantly on Trump v. DeSantis, I do want to make sure that we have a chance to talk about some other candidates who will be taking the stage tonight, just so that we have a general idea of who they are, if you haven't heard of them already, and what we could potentially expect. Another one that'll be joining the stage tonight, other than Ron DeSantis, will be Vivek Ramaswamy. He's a tech entrepreneur, has ties to the pharmaceutical industry, has never really been in politics before. I believe he's also maybe an author. Josh, what are your thoughts on Vivek?
I think Vivek's a total fraud, and I won't.
Why do you think? Because I'd heavily disagree with that, but
so I think Vivek is. And I gotta say, part of this comes from Ben Shapiro's analysis, and I listen to him regularly, so he's kind of one of my people.
So not a free thinker, I get it.
I'm a free thinker, but I like his analysis, which is that Vivek is young. He has been kind of taking in politicians from the last 20 or so years. I mean, as have we, and he's kind of putting the good qualities of all of them together. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You know, I think like Christie called him out last time for the whole, you know, skinny kid with the weird sounding last name. That's a direct line from Obama. Is it a good line? Absolutely. But I think you look at his last 4 years and his last couple, I don't know, I guess I'll say his last couple years, he's flip-flopped a lot. It seems like every interview he kind of goes with the wind. He goes with, hey, you know, you're saying this, so I'm going to follow you here. You say this, so I'm going to do this. And he kind of doesn't stand on his own 2 feet at all times. When he gets on the debate stage, he tries his best, and I think he does. I think he demands it, has a commanding presence. I just don't think he's as Republican as we like to think he is.
Why is that? What leads you to believe that? 2
big things: his ties to pharma and his money that he gained during COVID. I don't like that. I mean, I understand free market. He was an entrepreneur, but I don't like to say that he's going to say, "Oh, I'm going to go take on pharma." You're in pharma, number one, and I hate to rehash this a lot, but his George Soros, or not George Soros, but a Soros scholarship that he got to college. He was a millionaire at that point, or at least very, very wealthy at the time. He could have paid for it himself, yet he took a Soros scholarship and then paid Wikipedia to get rid of it because he knew that would make him look bad. I think if you're going to take it, I'd rather him just get it out there and say, listen, I took this at this time. I understand it might have been wrong, but I did it. I was a kid. He tried to hide it, and that's what scares me, the fact that he tried to hide it.
So I want to get to more about Vivek, but I want to address this real quick. So really, you're eating while you blog. One, this is not a blog. This is like a podcast and relatively casual. We're going to react to a debate. Not to mention the fact that Josh has been working all day. He's a teacher. Like, this is not his job. He comes on because he's my buddy. We started a podcast together a long time ago, and we started this radio show together when it was just a radio show, not a podcast. So, Phil, appreciate you watching, but
yeah, I mean, you know, Phil, I do
a little hungry, man.
I do apologize. I did ask Kev, you know, I could join in late and eat real quick or just hop on. He said, just hop on.
I mean, like, it's relative. I mean, we're having a good time. It's a Wednesday night. Calm down, Phil. Calm down.
Yes.
At least I'm not plastered right now. But no, when it comes to Vivek Ramaswamy, man, so I would disagree in the fact that he's a faker. I mean, when you look at this, he got a scholarship from the Soros Foundation. Okay, maybe it's a little sketch if he paid Wikipedia to take it down or something like that. I haven't really seen confirmed reports, only kind of rumors that happened. Wikipedia is a private company, and if he didn't pay for it through campaign funds, then it wouldn't necessarily be easily verifiable. But even if he did, he could easily write that off and I could easily write that off as it was college scholarship that happened to come from the Soros Foundation. He got money for college. Every kid wants that in some way. It did come from the Soros Foundation. Yes, he should answer for it. As for taking it down, he knows what some people on the right will do. Anytime anything is related, even if it's like the fourth distant cousin of Soros, people will attack him for it. And so it's an easy sell-off is like, the pharmaceutical one is a little bit different, and I do have questions about that. But in terms of him as a person, I think Vivek Ramaswamy has done an amazing job presenting himself as an intellectual for the most part, as well as I admire him a lot for being a younger candidate. One of the biggest things I am fed up with currently in the system that we have in whether that's congressional elections, even statewide elections, all the way up to the presidency, is the age of people that are running. While there's a lot of other things you can harp on Trump about or praise Trump about, his age is heavily. I mean, he will be the same age in 2024 as Biden was in 2020, which I understand a lot of people would argue, and I'd even argue that Trump's mental ability is much higher. And while it seems like there could be some decline in some of the things that he said recently,
I'm starting to see a little decline.
But it's still, even with that little
bit. I
agree.
I agree.
He messed up Jeb Bush the other day for George W. in a speech. Even with
he said he was running against Obama, and I was like,
yeah. Even with all these little things, like his mental ability is still higher than Biden's, but the problem still stands of age. We have a country where the average age of an American citizen is closer to around 40, I believe, 30 to 40, somewhere around there. I don't remember the exact number, but I do know that the average age of our senators is in their late 50s, early 60s, and the average age of a congressman is in their late 40s, early 50s, I believe. And so when you look at that and you look at the amount of people in America that are of age to be running for these offices, and then the age of the people that are in them, and also the years served of the people that are in those positions, we should be doing something to ensure that we have a genuinely more represented. Every leftist always wants to talk about how we don't have enough people of color, we don't have enough women or anything like that. We don't have enough people to represent the younger generation. Why does this matter? Why is this so important? Why it's so important is because, do you think somebody who is 70, 80, 90 years old, somebody who only has 10 to 20 years left on this planet, is going to be thinking about the long-term economy? Look, there's the argument, yes, they could be thinking about it for their grandchildren or something like that. But what about the person who is in their peak earning period of their lives right now? Somebody of that generation, somebody of our closer to our generation is going to be thinking much more long-term about their children and their grandchildren. The longevity of what they're considering is going to be much more than that of somebody who is in their 70s and 80s. And so that's why I think that Vivek Ramaswamy I think he's opening up a lot of doors for people younger than him that might be saying, well, I haven't been in politics long enough, or I am not good enough or something. You could have young people that are relatively successful, comparably successful, and they could potentially run for office. Hopefully it's not people like AOC, and it's like intelligent people. Cause I think it's indisputable that Vivek Ramaswamy, whether or not you think he could be a wolf in sheep's clothing, he is indisputably an intelligent person.
And you know what? I'll give him that. Like I said, I don't discredit him for kind of taking in all these different politicians and kind of picking and choosing different aspects. That's smart, because especially picking someone like an Obama, who was very appealing to a lot of people. He spoke very, very well to a lot of people. Picking someone like a Donald Trump, who was very appealing to the young crowd, putting his age in there too. I'm not saying he's not intellectual. I think he actually is very intellectual. I think he's very smart. I think you have to be smart to get to where you're at in the polls, especially. I just think I think a wolf in sheep's clothing is a great way to put it. I don't think he's necessarily the conservative we want. I think and I know we kind of caught some slack for this in our show, the show on Sunday, calling out saying, Trump isn't as conservative as we'd like to think. I think Vivek's the same way. I think Vivek will do what he can, say what he can, but when push comes to shove, he might not act the right way.
Yeah, again, there's not much of a record to go off with him,
and that's the problem.
Is a big thing for that. Up next, we got Tim Scott, the senator from South Carolina. He's obviously African American. He's the only African American that is running for president on the Republican side. Even on the Democrat side right now too. But you could argue Kamala Harris makes a great case. But Tim Scott will be taking the stage tonight. For most of it, and I think I said this the last time too, from everything I've seen from his campaign, he is running significantly on being the black candidate. And so he's appealing to things like family and keeping fathers in the home. He's running on crime a lot. Crime is definitely one that he triumphs over. And then he also runs on combating the woke narrative and the liberal narrative that black people can't be conservative or Republican. And I think there's a service to that, but does it get him to the White House is my question.
I don't think so. Listen, I think I've said this before too. I do like Tim Scott. I think Tim Scott's a very good senator. I think he seems like an incredible guy. He seems like a very kind guy. He's soft-spoken. I think that goes against him. And I think that honestly it's going to be his big thing. He's just too soft-spoken. If there ever was a time for him, it's not a time when you got to run against Donald Trump. That's just not going to work. A cabinet position, sure. I think he'd be a cabinet member, and I think that might be kind of what he's looking for at this point.
Yeah, I could see it. I just feel like he hasn't brought too much to the table, and I think soft-spoken is definitely a great way to put it. He honestly runs like he's a Green Party candidate, like in terms of the way that he speaks and everything is very like peaceful and we'll get through this. And I'm gonna be the man to do it with the good old like the Southern charm.
He's Calvin Coolidge. He's Silent Cal, and Calvin Coolidge was able to be president at the time because it was a time when politics were just so different. It was right after a World War. We're putting the country back together. He came in as a strong Republican that was more silent, but we didn't want loud politicians. We wanted people who would fix the economy and to keep the economy in track during the Roaring 20s. That's why Silent Cal is able to come in. Right now, we're looking for someone who's going to be loud, who's going to be aggressive, and who's going to fight. I just don't see it from him, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Everybody, if you're just tuning in, let us know what you think about these candidates in the comments. 7 Republican candidates joining the stage at the Reagan Library in California tonight. Obviously, not all the ones that are running for president, but many of them, including the second in line right now in terms of the polls, and that's Ron DeSantis, and plenty others, which we are outlining here. Please, please, please let us know in the comments what you guys think about this. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, and share it with anybody you think might need to find a way to watch the debate, because as you can see right here, I'll bring it on screen. We do have the debate queued up. This is just the intro video right now. We will obviously play the full thing once it's up. I'll also, even at some point, if you don't want any commentary during the debate, I will send the Rumble link to that as well, so you can watch it for free, everybody. Well, let's talk about another candidate here. Here's one that's caught some flack a little bit. Nikki Haley, the only Republican woman on stage. So we just discussed the only Black Republican that'll be on the stage. This is the only Republican woman on stage. She had quite a fiery and controversial performance at the first debate. She's been relatively a controversial candidate. What are your thoughts? What do you expect to hear from her? Where will she thrive and where will she fail?
Well, I mean, Nikki, I've always had kind of an admiration for. I don't think she's always the best in terms of war. I think she's a hawk, and obviously I'm not a war hawk. But I think she's incredibly well spoken. I think she's an incredible woman, and I look up to her a lot in terms of just her performance as the ambassador. I think where she's going to thrive is foreign affairs, because she's good at that. She went to the UN. She understood. I mean, she talks about the story. She looked mass murderers in the face, like the leaders of China and Iran, and called them murderers. And I mean, I think that takes a lot of guts. She's going to speak on foreign affairs a lot. She's going to speak, I think, last time, I think she did really good on abortion in terms of she was able to connect with people in a way that Mike Pence wasn't. So I think she's going to be, if it comes to that,
you thought she did really well on abortion?
I think she did good in kind of trying to play
because I thought that was one place that I think that people will listen to what she has to say in terms of abortion, but my personal opinion, as well as much of the sentiment I heard, is that her abortion stance was wishy-washy, pessimistic, and not really conservative. And this is the thing I've been saying to a lot of people is some of that kind of rhetoric when you're saying things like, well, maybe at the federal level it's a problem or anything like that. That's the kind of talk you have during a general election. This is the primary right now, where to run is to say, I am the most conservative candidate. Right. That's what you are trying, because your likely voters in a Republican primary are not going to be the people that are saying, am I a Republican or a Democrat? I don't really know what I think about that issue. No, your likely Republican voters, the people that decide this election, are the ones that say, I am hard in my ways. I believe what I say, and this is what I want. That is what wins the election. And so being in any way wishy-washy, that is what wins the primary. Once you get to the general, that's when you can be more like, okay, well, really, when we look at the makeup of the House, is it actually a possibility? Like, that's when you can kind of be more like, we're not going to, that's what my same criticism of Trump. When Trump goes on Face the Nation and he says that the abortion ban in Florida was terrible. Look, I wouldn't have blamed him if he said that 10, 12 months from now, when they're actually like, if he were to be the nominee, I wouldn't blame him then. But when you say that now, and you've also ran as a conservative, you've also claimed you're the most pro-life, and arguably he's probably in terms of policy, one of the most pro-life presidents we've had, simply because he installed the Supreme Court justices that got Roe v. Wade overturned. But in a primary, that's not the sentiment you want to have. And Nikki Haley did that in the similar, not exactly the same as Trump, but similar. And I think it's actually someplace she could get hammered, at least by conservatives, and especially from the evangelical base.
So I think the only difference, and I would agree to an extent. So I think the difference is, she said, I'm pro-life. I'm unapologetically pro-life. My husband was adopted. I understand it. She was trying to, I think, again, appeal to a base that everyone's trying to appeal to, which is that mom and that suburban woman, because that's the votes that we every group's kind of fighting for right now. I think her answer was clever because she gave herself a clear opposition to Mike Pence. Because I think people like to kind of put Mike Pence and her together in a lot of things. This was her saying, this is my distinction. I would agree, primary, probably not the best place to do this because of that. I mean, obviously, I hit Trump pretty hard. I think that Trump was a little more worse in his sentiment because he did say that heartbeat bills are terrible. Nikki never said that. She just said, federally, let's look at this. It probably won't happen because of this. Now, I think she could have even gone better and said, so if you want this to happen, we need to rally around and make sure we win Senate races and House races as well, so we can make this happen. She could have went a little farther. I 100% agree. Where instead she just kind of said, well, it's not going to happen right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
I give a rallying call.
I got a comment here, and I think this is important. So you're expecting her to say what you want to hear rather than her actual feelings on the topic. I'd like to be clear. I'm not necessarily even saying what I want. I mean, that is what I would want to hear as a potential voter. As a voter, I would want to hear somebody push the conservative sentiment and say that they are going to push the conservative sentiment. But what I'm really commenting on here is the political strategy. I'm talking about if you want to win, what I think you should do. I'm not necessarily saying that I only want her to say what I want to hear. What I'm commenting on is if you want to win, this is what I think you should do. And if you want to know where my credibility comes on that, well, one, I have people that watch and listen to me on the radio. Two, I'm a political science major. This is like what I study, and I've been studying and I've been involved in politics for years. That's what I think you should do. And if you think differently, if you think that I am wrong, don't worry. You can voice your comment, and I appreciate the comment, Frank. You could also text or call in at 309-451-9299. I'd be more than happy to take your call, and we could hash that out as well in any way, shape, or fashion. I'm watching my phone consistently here. Oh, Josh said that we froze up or something. I think Josh might be frozen.
I lost you for a second.
Awesome. Seems like your internet, buddy, because mine is going just fine, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe it's all those storms you have over there in Nevada, right?
We're not having storms anymore.
That was the joke because it's relatively dry there. But okay, so that's Nikki Haley. Let's go on to Chris Christie. Big old Chris Christie.
Sloppy Chris.
The former New Jersey governor had, like Haley in it, but in a different way, a very fiery performance at the last GOP debate. Many calling him the loser, has stapled his campaign basically to a sign that says F Trump. And so I don't really know if he's actually running for president or if he is on that stage simply to just spite the former president. This New Jersey governor has been openly mocked consistently for not only his weight, but also just his decorum. He has said incredibly crazy things to constituents while the New Jersey governor. And wow, Christie's just a fascinating character. Once again, I firmly believe he is in this race to just go after Donald Trump, which is, to me, a kind of slap in the face to the system, while funny. Slap in the face to the system, as well as just a disgusting waste of money. But what are your thoughts on Chris Christie, Joshua?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Christie's hilarious. I credit where credit is due. The man is funny. Listening to him at the last debate was hilarious. Him slamming Vivek was hilarious. Him calling him the Chat GPT candidate was probably the best line of the damn night. I
will give you that. That was a great line.
It was one of the best lines. I loved it. And he's not in this for real. I mean, he's in it. Yeah, he's in it just to slam Trump, to kind of slap him in the face a bit. You know, they're gonna. I wish they would exchange jabs. That's what I would love to see. But he's not in this for real. Yeah,
no, he's really, and the thing is that while you could make the argument that all of these other candidates, just about, are in this for a potential cabinet position or maybe vice presidency or something like that. Pretty much every other candidate, you can make that argument. I don't even think Chris Christie's for that because no one would want him. He's toxic. He's purely toxic. And so very interesting guy. I'm interested to see what he actually answers tonight and see if he'll actually have any type of wins, because besides that one jab, like you said, in the last debate. He really didn't have any other wins. Most people considered him the loser. My friend Marcel says Christie's goal is to make Trump lose the New Hampshire primary. I could see that. And again, with that, I think it's just all to make Trump look bad. There is one good thing I think about that, is that because Christie is on stage to make Trump look bad, no other candidate really has to go after Trump that much. While I think it'd be smart for some to take little jabs, no other candidate really has to take the flack from the Trump adherents for going after Trump, because Christie's going to take the blow. You know what I mean? And so, because if Christie weren't there, you'd be wanting every candidate to talk about Trump in some way. You would, because he's the elephant that's not in the room. And so,
right.
But with Christie there, it kind of alleviates the pressure off of the genuinely serious candidates, you know?
Yeah, and I do actually think that we're going to see more jabbing tonight of Trump. I think the DeSantis campaign I think DeSantis is going to do it for sure.
I think he is in a position where it would be smart to, especially with the virality of that abortion comment and the Megyn Kelly interview. He's
been fire. His campaign, the DeSantis war room has been fiery in just their slamming of Trump recently. I think he'd be stupid not to do it tonight. But I do also agree that, by Christie doing it, he's taking all the slack. And I almost think he's the guy who decided, I'm going to lay on the grenade for all of you. You know what? I'll jump in. I'll lay on the grenade. I'll take all that anti-Trump slack. You guys just focus on good policy and let's get him out that way. Well,
because Christie just takes it even too far too. Because the thing is that I'd say the majority of the candidates on that stage would even agree. I mean, I agree that our Department of Justice and our court systems are being weaponized against former President Trump, and I think a lot of it has to do with the 2024 election. And Trump's not doing himself any favors. I just heard, and maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I heard that his lawyers messed something up. So now in Florida, it's a bench trial rather than a jury trial. Did you hear about that?
I didn't. No, I heard that happened in the New York thing. He didn't request the jury trial. He requested a bench, and that's what potentially made him up. Because with the thing from yesterday from New York, that might have potentially what actually hurt him was it was a bench trial.
Yeah, I was talking with my boss about it. So again, my facts might not be 100% there, and a lot of my research today has been towards the other candidates. But interesting. And yes, I do think he's laying on the grenade, but again, he takes it too far. Our justice system is being weaponized against Trump. That said, it's a very interesting dynamic to have a presidential candidate that is for pending indictments and other civil lawsuits that are problematic. Just adds to the reality TV that our political system has become. So that's Chris Christie. Okay. We got two more people, both considered to be relatively boring, one of which being Mike Pence. What are we expecting out of Mike Pence tonight? Former vice president. Many Trump supporters obviously hate him and claim that he was a traitor and arguably treasonous on January 6th. Many of their words, not mine. But what are your thoughts?
Mike Pence is going to continue to do what he did last time, which is saying, hey, I worked good with Trump, but I'm not Trump. Here's how I'm different. And here's how I acted appropriately on January 6th. That's his whole, I think his whole point of his campaign is just to defend his record and to make sure that his name isn't driven through the mud of history.
Yeah, I could see it. I think he would also be somebody that could potentially take a cabinet position if Trump were not the nominee. Because again, like, while I think keep him away from foreign affairs because his answers on Ukraine are borderline treasonous. Because he just wants to, he is similar to being a war hawk in that. But I think he's always been, he always has been relatively conservative and for the most part in his policy. He was a good governor of Indiana. He has a decent record to run on. He has been, you have many Republicans, conservatives that go significantly for the evangelical vote, but don't live by that lifestyle nearly as much. Mike Pence has been, at least from everything I know, unless there's something I don't, has been an adherent Christian. And I think that there's some credit where credit is due on that. Even though he is, his I heard a comedian one time say that he was a penis head looking MFer. And I've never been able to get that out of my head. And so to me,
Oh,
even
I
though
love
he
it.
is a boring penis head MFer. But that's Mike Pence. Interesting. Will always reign significantly and get a lot of claps for abortion because that he has been an adherent to the pro-life movement. And then finally, the person where every time he comes on screen, I always ask, "Who's that guy?" It's Doug Burgum, North Dakota governor.
Doug.
Actually, a standout candidate, I think, in the last debate. I think
Yeah.
he handled himself well. I actually, when reflecting on it more, because one of the things that grew with me about the last debate was I thought DeSantis should have spoke more initially, and then I realized, well, he let everybody else fight while showing who he was and running on his record and being kind of a return, kind of an example for normalcy again when it comes to a political candidate or an attempt to. And I think Doug Burgum, just with less name and face recognition, did a very similar tactic in the last debate, which is one of
Yeah.
the reasons why we thought he did relatively well.
Yeah, I mean, I said I actually first of all I didn't think Doug was going to qualify. When I checked today and I saw he qualified, I was really excited.
I was
not,
surprised polling above
yeah,
3% with the
yeah.
polling
I mean, I'll tell
requirements.
you what.
I'm not surprised by the donors, but again, two national polls or 3% in two national polls or 3% in one national poll or as well as two polls from four of the early voting states. That means he's polling at least 3% in some polls, and that's actually
Yeah,
really surprising to me.
yeah. I mean, I said I don't hate Doug. I think Doug Burgum established himself as a good cabinet position. I mean, I really that's what he's doing. He just seems like a good guy. Like I don't know. Every time I see him, like, you know what? He looks like he's having fun. He's just happy to be there. He's just proud to be there, and he's going to do a little more with it. Hopefully, I do hope he gets a cabinet position. He seems like a good guy. I will give him that. He's my underdog a little bit.
Yeah, I think definitely he should stay in government, at least from everything I've seen from him. I'd be interested to talk to somebody. And if anybody out there and you know somebody, share this video with them. Get them I can put my email on screen. If you know somebody from North Dakota, because again, I only know what I read in the news, what I see places. Got story tips, questions, ideas for shows. If you know somebody from North Dakota too, have them send me an email. I want to talk to him about this Doug Burgum guy. And tell me what he's done for the state, because North Dakota is kind of like a Montana. Like, people almost forget it exists with how small it is, or at least how small the population is. And there's, I mean, North Dakota is South Dakota without a face mountain. So Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
So,
basically.
at least from my understanding, maybe I'm totally wrong and I'm totally like mischaracterizing North Dakota and there's something I'm really missing there. But let me know, guys, on that one. If you know somebody, you can always email into the show. Now, we got about 20 minutes left. They had a countdown up earlier. Now they got some guy talking. 20 minutes until the debate starts. I will have it up there. I think they got somebody else doing pre-show coverage. But we appreciate you guys being here. Don't forget to smash that like button. Comment what you're thinking. We're going to obviously keep the comments open, especially during the debate. If somebody says something funny or interesting, I'll put it up on screen. And if you got any questions, let us know there as well. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, wherever you're watching from. If that's Rumble, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, anything like that. Subscribe to the channel or like it, whatever. If you can, go to my YouTube. It's Speechless Kev. You can see up in the corner up above Josh. Check out the YouTube. That's where I do most of my content, and I'd really appreciate you checking that out. Comment, share, subscribe. I think I hit everything. Like, ring that notification bell, set it to all, everything like that. But I want to talk about who do you think, Josh? So we had Francis Suarez, who was the mayor of Miami, was running for president, was the first to drop out. I know you have in your classroom in Nevada, you have like all of them signed up and you're being dramatic about tearing them down, aren't you?
Yeah, so I have all the candidates on my wall, labeled Republican, Democrat. I put them all up. And then, as they drop out, I'm going to dramatically rip them down. And actually, I leave the little paper on the wall so you can see where they were. But currently, on my board, Suarez is on there, and it says first loser with the arrow pointing at him because he's the first loser. He is, and they all got a kick out of that.
Well, who do you think will drop next? So I'm trying to think of. I only have the ones that are going to be on stage, and but I know that Larry Elder is still in the race. Who else did not qualify?
Asa Hutchinson.
Asa Hutchinson. You also have, there's a guy, Binkley.
Ryan Binkley. And then
there's another milquetoast white guy.
Perry Johnson.
Perry Johnson.
Yeah. I think Hutchinson said that if he doesn't qualify for the third debate, he's going to suspend his campaign.
Yeah, he's another not quite as ardent as Christie, but relatively anti-Trump. Not very well liked by the Republican base. He was former governor of Arkansas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Yeah, I think he spoke at a Turning Point conference, at one of the most recent Turning Point conferences I was at, and he got booed while he was on stage.
Well, yeah. So I know he vetoed a bill that would have made child transitioning illegal.
Oh, really?
And,
well,
yeah, I believe that was him.
Well, A1 scumbag right there. He likes creating big pharma slaves. So, man, why can't we get to a general consensus as a society that we probably shouldn't let children mutilate their bodies if they aren't allowed to own a firearm or drive a car or vote?
Yeah.
But we're gonna let them mutilate themselves. Okay.
Yeah, I think his thing was like, well, that's an overstep of government. It's like, is it? It's a state. It's it's a state level thing. So
I had to sign a permission slip. I had to sign a permission slip to eat a peanut when I was in like 4th grade.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that it's not an overstep of government to say, hey, maybe don't chop your dick and balls off. I can say that on the radio. Maybe don't chop your dick and balls off and shove yourself full of hormones when you have no idea what you're actually doing. Like, maybe that's not an overstep of government, but who am I to say that? I'm just a dumb old 22 conservative college kid. But
oh yeah,
I don't know. Okay, so we got what do you think about Larry Elder? It seems like he's consistently been griping that the GOP is slanting him. I'm genuinely surprised with his relatively low performance.
I'm not. I mean, I don't know. Larry Elder, I think he did well in California because he offered a clear distinction to Newsom, but even then he lost. I think I just keep seeing him kind of jump to just different positions and running. He's just trying to grab a hold of something at this point. I think that's why he's not as appealing. I mean, don't get me wrong, he does good. You know, he goes on interview with like Charlemagne, and Charlemagne the God and everything. And
and he did a really good job calling him out. He was like, "Man, Joe Biden literally said on your show, if you ain't black, and you're asking me why you shouldn't vote Democrat."
Right, exactly. I mean, I think he does well. I just don't think he has the appeal. I mean, I think I look at him and he just looks off. There's something about him that makes me uncomfortable. I don't know what it is. I just look at him like he just doesn't. And I hate to say it. I know it sounds stupid, but
it does.
He just doesn't have.
Josh, you're an idiot.
He just. I don't know. He just doesn't have a face. I look at him. It's like I don't want to see that every day. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was surprised with his low performance, significantly because he ran a surprisingly good campaign against Gavin Newsom when he ran during the recall. And so I'm surprised that he was not even able to make it to the first debate performance. He had a nation. I mean, I remember when the Gavin Newsom recall was going on, there was a lot of people around the country that were in some way doing their best in any way possible to support Larry Elder. They were trying to, sending him money. They were sharing memes and everything on social media. And so that's why I was surprised that he didn't even make it once to the first debate, especially. After you don't make it to the first one, I kind of assume you're not going to make it to the second one. But I thought his campaign, honestly, I'm surprised that his campaign hasn't been doing even as well or I'm surprised Chris Christie's campaign is doing better than Larry Elder's. That's one that really surprised me.
I think Chris Christie has more name recognition.
Absolutely. Well, I know, Josh, you got to go pee or something real quick.
Yeah, I got to step out for 1 second.
All good. Well, I'll stay here. Everybody, again, do not forget to, as I said earlier, like this video. We got the debate coming up. I got the live stream right there. As you can see, they're doing some pre-debate show. I will send the link if you don't want the commentary, but Josh and I will provide some commentary, not interjecting too much, to ensure we can hear everything that these Republican candidates have to say. And we can truly get to the heart of some of the issues that Americans are facing. If you want to join in on the show, we have 15 minutes left before the debate starts. You could text or call in at 309-451-9299. And if you text in, I'll read it live on air. or if you call in, I can bring you right on with us to have a conversation about this. Who are you planning on voting for in 2024? The election were held today. That's the question I like to ask people. If the election were held today, who would you plan on voting for? Is why. Leave it in the comments. Shoot me a text. Give me a call. 309-451-9299. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And while you're at it, don't forget to smash that like button. Share this video with your friends. You'll be able to watch the debate here in case you're having a hard time figuring out Fox Business or figuring out Rumble, anything like that. I'll be able to bring it to you right here live as best as I can through the radio station's internet signal. So don't worry, we'll have that right here. Comment what you think, share it with your friends, ring that notification bell, set it to all. You'll never miss a minute of the content that I bring you here on Speechless. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in. We'll have Josh back in a second and even after the debate. So we're going to watch the full debate, have a great time doing that and give some commentary throughout that. But after the debate, I will be opening up a panel in which I'll send a link into the comments and you guys will be able to take to that link. And if you would like, join a panel of a few different people discussing what we thought of the debate, what we think about the 24 election. And this is truly just to get a general understanding of where your average American stands. We always hear what big pundits have to say. And while I'll brag a little bit in saying that I've grown some of a following on YouTube and Facebook and such. I'm still not, we're not Hannity or anything like that. And we always hear what your Hannitys and what your big old pundits have to say. But what do you think? You're the voter. You're the average person. Why is it that rarely, the only time you ever hear what the average person thinks is when you find when CNN or Fox or the lamestream media finds their average 10 voters to bring to any flippin' presidential event. And then they ask them what they think. And the saddest thing is that those 10 moderates, while their vote is important and their vote matters because they're usually the swing voters, they're usually some of the most uninformed. They're not the people watching a political talk show, listening, reading, and about politics and understanding everything. So what do you think? And that's what we're going to talk about after the debate. Very interested to see what these candidates have to say. Again, leave your comments on everything. I want to see what you have to say. I see one guy, Trump Bubba. Okay, Jay, I appreciate the comment. Again, we're trying to get to, I think it's very, very interesting. And I'd love to hear a different perspective on Trump not attending these debates. It's interesting to me that we have the currently leading in the polls and leading by a wide margin, honestly, and that's just the truth, at least from all the polls that we're seeing. He's leading by a wide margin, and he is not attending the debates for which you have to defend your record against your other candidates, people that are being taken seriously within your own party, and you're not attending. And I have a problem with that. If you don't, and you want to tell me why, again, that number is 309-451-9299 right there on the screen. Let me know what you think. But when it comes to Trump not attending the debate, I do, and when it comes to the polls, I want to be clear on something too, is that historically, most of the time, and it'd be very interesting if it is not this way this time, at least in Republican presidential elections, the person who is leading and is the front runner at the beginning of a race is not oftentimes the winner of the primary. Consider 2016 for the Republican primary. When it's a contested election. I mean, when it's an actually contested election. If it's an incumbency, it's a different story. But consider 2016. Jeb Bush was leading. Jeb Bush was leading. Seriously. And so for a lot of people that say that Trump is the nominee, it's sealed, signed, and delivered, I'm telling you, the election is 13 months away, 14, about November 2024. A lot can change in that time, everybody. A lot can change. And so even if you have your heart set on Trump, be open-minded because another candidate, we got to see what happens in March. Well, obviously the primary isn't 14 months away. Primary is in March. The general election is in 14 months. Sorry, my brain is scrambled. It is almost 8:00 here. We got 10 minutes left, everybody. We will be having the debate back on screen. I believe Josh is coming back now. He's trying to shovel food down his gullet because he has also been working all day. But
yes,
I am excited for this event, Josh, for this debate. I always
Me
look
too.
forward to debates, and I look forward especially to primary debates because it's commonly known that when it comes to a general election debate, most people watch it, the majority watch it knowing who they want to win already. They know who they're going to vote for and everything like that. And while I do believe that many who are going to watch the Republican primary debate have a generally good idea of who they're going to vote for, there's a lot more skepticism. There's a lot more. It's not divided on a party line, and when it comes to so there are more undecideds. So
Yeah, I agree, and I mean, you know, it's funny because I always say election night is like my Super Bowl. Like I am just so excited. Like all the primary stuff is just like the playoffs. I love it all. I truly do. And I tell my students that too. And I'm like, I am a freak. I love elections. I think they're super fun. And I do agree that people go into this not really knowing. I encourage all my students. In fact, I'm offering extra credit again if they watch it and write a little something on it. I'm like, even if you're not a Republican, if you don't consider yourself a Republican, in fact, if you hate the Republicans, go watch it because I think you need to know who could potentially be the next president, who could potentially be the nominee. You got to understand that. And I've had some, who wrote in the last debate. They wrote something. They're like, you know what? I don't consider myself a Republican, but I watched it, and here's what I thought actually stood out. Here's what I thought had really good points. Here's what I thought I really hated because they disagreed with me so much. But here's who but they were actually good at being objective and saying overall as an objective stance, I think this person did good, or I like this person. And I think it was cool to read. I was actually really excited to read those, and I hope I get more. I hope kids are actually willing to do it and give it a chance.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you offered extra credit for that, because you have like 15 through 18-year-olds in Nevada?
So I teach government, which is all seniors, so it's all 17, 18-year-olds.
Okay. What was their general consensus, or maybe there wasn't a general consensus, but what did they think of the last debate?
They thought that Mike Pence lost. They thought Mike Pence and Chris Christie lost.
Okay.
Yep. They thought Christie was funny, but they thought they lost. They thought Nikki and Vivek won.
Really?
Yeah.
So Vivek was a controversial topic because I remember last time I had some friends that were at the debate. It was in the Midwest, and so it was a lot easier. I'll be texting and seeing if I have anybody that's there tonight, but it's out in California and I'm in Illinois, so we'll see. But I remember I had two callers back to back in the last one. One said Vivek did great, loved him, and then the next said Vivek did awful, or maybe it was vice versa. He seemed like a more controversial candidate. There were some that thought he was childish, and there were some that thought he was one of the best of all.
Right.
And so I found it very interesting, the dichotomy. Nikki Haley being one of the best ones. What was that about? Why do you think that? Why did your students think that?
It was actually a lot of female students who said that, and they said kind of what I said earlier is she had they said it more. They're like, I don't necessarily agree with what she said, but she had an energy about her that seemed very comforting, very mom-like, which obviously makes sense. She's a mom. But they said that the way she commanded a presence on the stage was very, very appealing. The way she put Vivek in his place was very, very appealing. And they said overall, it was just cool to watch a strong woman up on that stage.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Again, though, I think that might be coming a little bit from because I remember even went back when I was 16, 17, and you start getting into politics at that age, you don't realize for a little bit the vast history and experience of certain candidates. Like I even noticed that I talked to a kid who was like 15 a few weeks ago, just shooting the shit about politics. And he was like, oh man, I thought like Chris Christie was really interesting. And I was just like, man, like, I get it. You're not a big fan of Trump, but like, really? Like, do you know who Chris Christie is? Do you know like what he's done in the past? And he's just kind of a scumbag in terms of being a governor, but that's the way it is. And so that's when it comes to Nikki Haley. I feel like a lot of people or a lot of young people might not realize her history with being fairly pro-war and her stances on that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but it was definitely interesting to see them being like she was a commanding presence, which I think we both agreed that she was a very commanding presence.
Yeah, I'll give her that.
I was gonna say I think their metrics of winning are different than us. Like we look at it from a political stance, they look at it more of a who just sounded the best stand. We're just so different.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Sorry, I'm just checking up. We got about 5 minutes until the debate will start. I got my live stream up and ready so I can bring it onto the screen. We'll make sure that we bring you guys that best coverage, and we will be obviously adding a little bit of color commentary on there after the debate, I will be opening up a panel where I'll send a link and you can join the panel so we can discuss the debate if you'd like. And we'll hash that out for probably about an hour or so after the debate. Josh, I know you have work tomorrow. I have class, and so probably going to cut that off after an hour after the debate. But it'll be interesting to do all that. Again, if you guys are just tuning in, thank you so much. If you've never watched Speechless before, this is an election special. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring those notification bells, put them to all, comment what you think. We're bringing up comments throughout the debate for anything that you see in here. And then also share this with your friends and family. If anybody you know needs to watch this debate, doesn't know how to work Fox Business or find Rumble or anything like that, we got it right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, all of them. And so you can find it there, especially with our fun little commentary. And so thank you guys again for tuning in. We got the presidential debate coming up in just about 4 minutes. I'll bring up that's our live stream. They're currently doing, like I said, some color commentary. So we'll get to that momentarily. Okay. So I see, so I saw somebody in here say about to tear Vivek to pieces. I'm interested, Josh, reading that made me think of, who do you think is going to go after who? Obviously we've kind of determined that all of them for the majority of them at some point should probably mention Trump. But for those that are going to be on the stage, who's going after who? And who do you think will go after who, and who should go after who?
So I think DeSantis is going to go after Trump. I think Christie's obviously going to go after Trump. I think Christie and Vivek are going to go back and forth again. I think Haley and Pence are probably going to go back and forth. Okay. I think DeSantis would be smart to go after Vivek, and I think Vivek would actually be smart to go after DeSantis, because I think that would be a good dichotomy. I mean, I do think Vivek is almost the stand-in for Trump. So I think them going at each other would be good. I think Doug is just going to sit there the whole time being like, I'm just happy to be here. Good for Doug, though. Yeah, I think Tim Scott, too, is just going to kind of be like, I'm here. That's all I can think of there.
That's what you got? That's what you got. Yeah, I think that would make sense. I definitely see Doug's best strategy. I love Doug, man. Doug is like the puppy on stage. He's like a golden retriever. Like, that's the vibe I get from Doug. If he was a dog, he'd be a golden retriever. He just seems to be all smiles, and he's just happy whenever anybody talks to him and says anything. And so I'm interested to see exactly the strategy in terms of him. We got, sorry, I was just refreshing my page with the debate so that I have it all set up here. So everybody, if this is the first time you're tuning in, I'd like to be clear on everything. And if it seems like I was rambling to kind of stall for a second, it's because I absolutely was. That's because every graphic that you see, everything that you see going on the stage, all of the production, I do it. And I like doing it because then it makes it so nobody else can screw it up, because I'm a little OCD like that about things I care about. And so
a little,
well, I let you create the thumbnail for that
one thumbnail. And I think that's because you didn't have time and you wanted me to do it.
That's exactly what happened.
Yep.
So sometimes if it seems like I'm focusing on like 10 things at once, it's because I am. And so right now I'm working on getting my screen and making sure that our internet is good enough to carry this debate live stream, and which it should be. But I will, like I said, if for whatever reason it goes out, if I get, what could also happen is a lot of times YouTube and everything likes to take things off because of copyright claims and everything like that, despite the fact that this is commentary and this is also of public interest. They like to shut people down. So I am going to send the link to the Rumble right now in the chat, so that if for whatever reason the live stream goes out, if the internet connection is wonky, then you can go find that on Rumble link. I'm going to send it right now, everybody.
All right, minute 19. And I'm trying to eat off screen, so not,
cute.
Set the audience.
Okay, that should have gone to just about everything there. I'm going to check my audio. Hear that?
I can hear it.
Good enough?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And then I saw the third one's actually going to be in Miami.
Who what?
The third debate's going to be in Miami.
In Miami. Oh, that'll be
Yeah.
interesting. I hope maybe Trump will actually go to that one because it'll be in Florida.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting being in DeSantis and Trump's home, kind of home turf. What would that bring?
Absolutely. Well, we got 40 seconds, everybody. 35. It keeps going down. I mean, it's almost like time passes. But stay tuned with us. This is going to be fun. Very excited. Debate 2024 GOP on Rumble and everywhere else. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think throughout the entire debate. Comment what you think. I'll bring some fun ones on screen so that you can interact with everybody. I like making it interactive. This show is not just about me. It's about all of us. We're not going to take the country back by just watching me on YouTube. We could get a lot of people to watch me on YouTube, and maybe that'll work. I don't know. Just jokes. But 1 second. Let's go.
High in the hills of California's Simi Valley stands a monument to one of the most beloved leaders in our nation's history, Ronald Reagan, the Gipper, the great communicator, America's 40th commander-in-chief. He railed against big government.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
And sought peace through strength.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
40 years after Reagan's landslide re-election, the Republican Party faces critical questions. What does it mean to be a conservative?
We fight for the truth.
We are not going to worry about what the left and the media say about us.
What is the key to a thriving economy?
It's innovation, not regulation.
America could do for anyone what she's done for me.
We will stop the spending. We will stop the borrowing. We will stop the earmarks.
What is America's role in the world?
We need to build a military fitted to the widening challenges in an ever more dangerous world.
Sometimes you avoid war by showing you tough.
And the country faces even more challenges. Would Reagan even recognize the country in which we now live? Tonight, candidates seeking the Republican nomination converge in California to chart a new path for the grand old party. Now is the time for choosing.
Welcome to the second Republican debate of the...
Don't know why it just got cut off there, everybody. Very sorry about. Looks like it's coming back now. Oh.
California.
Wish I had a better answer. I'm trying my best. Let's reload this tab real quick, and it should be right back. So sorry, everybody. Technical difficulties hit everybody sometimes, and it's hitting me right now. So it was like the worst timing. Absolutely, too. Don't know why it's not letting me stream it. I feel awful. Again, that link isn't. Here we go.
Should be the one to lead that city into a brighter tomorrow. But first, they have to convince you, the voter. Please allow me to welcome our...
This was not an issue the last time that I did this.
Speaking audience. Muy buenas noches a todos. Desde la biblioteca...
So sorry, guys. Wish I don't know why it is doing this. Obviously, introducing the candidates. Let me see what else I could work on doing here, too, while this is...
And former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
Next is South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. And former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
On the wing tonight, former Vice President Mike Pence and North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
We have questions on a wide variety of issues important to primary voters. Candidates get 1 minute to answer and 30 seconds to respond if singled out. When their time runs out, we'll all hear this. We have a lot of ground to cover, so please keep it civilized.
Let's get going.
We are in this spacious, sunny place tonight, designed to reflect the very nature and character of Ronald Reagan. It's a place that makes you proud to be an American. Yet today our nation is drowning in division and incivility.
Voters say they dread the 2024 election and find politics exhausting. 2 in 3 Americans think the country is on the wrong track, and 3 in 4 say the economy is not in good shape.
Prices are up 18% since 2020. More than half of the US population has little access to childcare. 85% of Americans say their personal finances are a source of stress.
Americans want to believe a leader who says, "You can follow me. I've got you. Don't worry." President Biden is trying to do that with Bidenomics.
And yesterday, he joined the picket lines where auto workers are demanding more wages and job security. Senator Scott, you recently reacted by praising Ronald Reagan for firing air traffic controllers in the 1980s, saying, "You strike, you're fired." Would you fire thousands of striking auto workers today, Senator?
Obviously, the President of the United States cannot fire anybody in the private sector. However, we should look back at the first bill in Congress under Joe Biden. The first bill had $86 billion for the union pensions because they continue to overpromise yet underdeliver. One of the challenges that we have in the current negotiations is that they want 4-day French work weeks, but more money. They want more benefits, working fewer hours. That is simply not going to stand. I sat in a finance committee hearing when a widow came before the committee who was promised pensions from the unions, $4,000 a month. Unfortunately, it had been cut to $1,000 a month. We must make sure that we honor the commitments that we make. And one of the ways that we do that, do not overpromise and then underdeliver and leave the taxpayers on the hook. I'll say this, Joe Biden should not be on the picket line. He should be on the southern border working to close our southern border because it is unsafe, wide open, and insecure, leading to the deaths of 70,000 Americans in the last 12 months because of fentanyl. It is devastating. Every county in America is now a border county because fentanyl has devastated Americans in every single state. I will also say 6 million illegal crossings since Joe Biden has taken office, and he eliminated Title 42. The one thing he should do is finish the wall, reinstate Title 42, and get the job done.
Well, I can promise you that we are going to have a lot of questions on the border and immigration. But in the meantime, we do want to talk about the economy and jobs, and especially want to talk about this strike for just a moment more. Mr. Ramaswamy, you've said you really empathize with the strikers. You're standing next to Senator Scott. And do you agree with what he said, or do you think he's wrong?
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view. I do have a lot of sympathy for the workers, however. People are going through real hardship in this country. I've been through hardship growing up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. My mom had to work overtime in nursing homes in Southwest Ohio to make ends meet and pay off our home loan. So I understand that hardship is not a choice, but victimhood is a choice. And we choose to be victorious in the United States.
Sorry, guys. Don't know. Again, this is happening earlier.
You know what? If I was giving advice to those workers,
man, Tim Scott it's Biden doing this. I swear, it's Biden keeping the GOP debate from being able
to. White House in Washington, D.C. That's.
I wonder if it's a Rumble issue.
Could be a Rumble issue.
Really where the protest needs to be. Disastrous economic policies that have driven up prices, that have driven up.
I'd like to not. I can try logging into my Fox Business and streaming that one, which I could. Again, that Rumble link is in the comments for anybody.
At the same time, wages is remaining stagnant.
I'm going to try my
What
Fox
we need is to
Nation
deliver
thing.
economic.
Sorry, guys. Doing my best here. It's my lame connection. We have
in this
pretty good
country.
connection here in the station. It might not be that, but
Unlock American energy.
and I see it's okay, guys. We're gonna work this out.
Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear energy, put people back to work by no longer paying them more money to stay at home. Stabilize the US dollar itself and rescind a majority of those unconstitutional federal regulations that are hampering our economy.
Working on figuring
That
out
is
the
how we
technical
unleash
difficulties.
American exceptionalism. And that's not a Democratic vision or a Republican vision.
From my understanding, this is a Rumble
That is
issue.
an American vision that we embrace economic growth, and capitalism is still the best system known to man to lift us up from poverty, and we should not apologize for it. That's what it means to be an American.
Together, the CEOs of General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis make 336 times the number of number of rank-and-file workers. That's just part of a wider income inequality trend in the country. The richest 1% now controls 1/5 of all income. Vice President Pence, last week you said you side with American workers, but you also support how these companies operate. Which is it?
Well, thank you for the question. I want to thank Univision and Fox Business for assembling such a wonderful forum. Look, I do disagree with something Tim Scott just said. Joe Biden doesn't belong on a picket line. He belongs on the unemployment line. I mean, look, I'm from the second leading manufacturing state in the country per capita. I was governor of the state of Indiana. We brought 12,000 factories back to America during our administration. I know something about manufacturing. And I got to tell you, while the union bosses are talking about class warfare and talking about disparity in wages, I have to tell you, I really believe what's driving that is Bidenomics has failed. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. Auto workers and all American workers are feeling it, and families are struggling in this economy. And Joe Biden's Green New Deal agenda is good for Beijing and bad for Detroit. We ought to repeal the Green New Deal, get rid of the mandates and subsidies that are driving American gasoline automotive manufacturing into the graveyard. And beyond that also, as President of the United States, I'll be standing with workers all across America, and I'll be standing for the right to work of every American to join a union or not join a union as they decide.
Senator Scott, you were mentioned. Will you care to respond?
There's no doubt that Joe Biden needs to be fired. That's why I'm running for president. I look forward to being the next president of the United States. I will also say, I know America can do for anyone what she's done for me. It's why we're focusing on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting the America we all love. Growing up in a single-parent household, I wondered if the American dream would work for a kid in the inner city. I've got good news for every single child, whether you're in the inner cities of Chicago or the rural parts of Iowa. America and the dream, it is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. God bless these United States of America.
Dr. Haley, you raise your hand?
It was a Rumble issue, too.
I think we need to look at exactly what happened. Biden showed up on that picket line, but why are those workers actually there? It's because of all of the spending that he has pushed through in the economy that's raised the inflation. So when you look at the fact that we are paying higher gas prices, higher grocery prices, $7,000 more a year for families, what we need to do is I came out with an economic plan. Eliminate the gas and diesel tax so that they have more money in their pocket. Let's focus on going after middle America and cutting taxes for middle America and collapsing those brackets. Let's get rid of unfair distortions like the state and local tax that they give to wealthy people in blue states and paid by red states. And let's make sure we make the small business taxes permanent. They only made those temporary. They made the corporate taxes permanent. Let's focus on what it takes to get more cash in the pockets of workers. That's when we'll be able to deal with strikes like this, not sitting on a picket line like Joe Biden is.
Thank you, Governor Haley. We have other questions to get to about economy. Allow me to.
I'm sorry.
Allow me to.
I'm sorry. I have to jump in because we're missing the point, and every other network is missing the point. The reason why people are striking in Detroit is because Joe Biden's interference with capital markets and with free markets. The subsidies, we're subsidizing the automakers and we're subsidizing the cars, and a particular kind of car, not every car. We're subsidizing electric vehicles. And when you decide that we're going to take all of your taxpayer monies, take $1 billion, subsidize a certain type of vehicle, and the batteries come from China. China controls 85% of the rare earth minerals. They're called rare earth because they're measured in parts per million. China is moving 100,000 pounds of earth in Indonesia, in Africa. They're literally destroying the planet so that they can make a battery that's in a car subsidized here.
Doug Burgum coming out swinging.
I know,
right
swinging.
there.
I like, God, it's awesome.
Joe Biden, this strike is at Joe Biden's feet.
Good for Doug.
Yeah, good for Doug.
Topic of economy, but allow me to the follow question to Governor Christie. The government will shut down if Congress does not reach a deal by the end of this week. Vice President Pence warns that politics of, quote, Trump's populist proteges, like Mr. Ramaswamy, are a road to ruin for the GOP. If the government shuts down, should voters blame populist Republicans?
Voters should blame everybody who's in Washington, D.C. They get sent down there to do the job, and they've been failing at doing the job for a very long time. And let's be honest about this with the voters. You know, during the Trump administration, they added $7 trillion in national debt. And now the Biden administration has put another $5 trillion on and counting. They have failed, and they're in the spot they're in now because none of them are willing to tell the truth. None of them are willing to take on the difficult issues. They just want to keep kicking the can down the road. And the inflation that Nikki spoke about is absolutely right, and it's caused by government spending. And that's why people all across this country are suffering tonight. And yet we don't get any answers because Joe Biden hides in his basement and won't answer as to why he's raising the debt the way he's done. And Donald Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs and won't show up here to answer questions like all the rest of us are up here to answer. He put $7 trillion on the debt. He should be in this room to answer those questions for the people you talk about who are suffering. And if the government closes, it's the blame. It is to the blame of everyone in Washington, D.C., who has failed to do their job and just plays to the grandstand.
The next question is for Governor DeSantis.
Here's how we get it done in Washington. We must find a way.
Can we please respect the time?
We can get it done.
Governor DeSantis, you haven't spoken. Please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed, they printed, they spent, and now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open. So please spare me the crocodile tears for these people. They need to change what's going on. And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. And you know who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president, when they send me a bloating spending bill that's going to cause your prices to go up, I'm going to take out this veto pen and I'm going to send it right back to them.
That's a phenomenal. That was really good.
That is on the minds of a lot of moms and dads and Americans, and I know that you've been thinking about it because childcare costs, they are up. they're topping $10,000 per month. Some families are spending up to half of their income on childcare, and they're having to decide, is it worth it for me to work, or does it not make sense for me financially? In 3 days, the billions of dollars in pandemic-era funding is going to end, and 70,000 daycares could close. So you had an effort to broaden eligibility for child care assistance. That fell apart last year. And for the moms and dads out there who are worried, what can you tell them if you weren't able to get it through the Congress? How could you do it as president?
Certainly one of the things I did as a member of Congress was to make sure that we protected the Head Start programs around the country, giving people the opportunity to pick and choose the place that they send their children. The challenges that we see today under the Biden administration is that the cost for daycare has gone over $15,000 per child. In the Build Back Broker plan, he called it a Build Back Better plan, it was going up to $29,000. The way we fix that
He tried really
problem
hard for
is to
that
make
one, but
sure
it's just
that
not
we
going to work.
actually cut taxes and give more Americans their money back. When I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we actually lowered a single mother's taxes by 70% on the federal level. For dual income households by 60%. Then we went a step further. We doubled the child tax credit and made it refundable. By doing that, more parents had more resources to make the decisions how to take care of their family. The one thing we should do is let the American people keep their money. When that happens, the greatest opportunities rise from the ashes.
Okay, I'm going to give you 15 seconds. Go ahead, and then we're going to the border.
Ilya mischaracterized a part of my view. I think this artificial division is unhelpful in our party. The real divide is not between the Republicans on this stage. And in the Reagan Library, I want to say these are good people on this stage. The real divide is between the majority of us in this country who love the United States of America and share our founding ideals. Free speech, meritocracy, the idea you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character, and the fringe minority in the Democrat Party that has a chokehold over that party. That's the real divide. So this populist versus classical debate is artificial. We need to unite this party.
I want to answer the question on childcare. We have millions.
We have all these questions. We're going to get to you. We're going to come back to you. There's a lot of time.
We're about childcare. Nobody answered the question. In North Dakota, we knew that the cliff was coming. We knew that there was going to be millions of people without it. And so guess what? We planned.
Okay.
And when we passed legislation because
we will get you some questions, but you're going to have to let us move on. We are going to the border next.
Childcare is workforce infrastructure.
And I haven't been given a chance to respond.
In 1984, President Ronald Reagan said the following.
The idea of amnesty for those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though sometime back they may have entered illegally.
2 years later, President Reagan granted amnesty to nearly 3 million immigrants, something no Democrat or Republican president has done since. Governor Christie, as governor of a non-border state in 2010, you supported a path to citizenship. But when you ran for president in 2016, you flipped, saying immigrants should be tracked like FedEx packages. Where do you stand now on a path to citizenship for 11 million undocumented
trucked like FedEx packages?
No one has done anything since we first had this discussion 13 years ago. We're not in a position to be able to do any of that anymore. What we have to do now is first treat this like the law enforcement problem it is. Our laws are being broken every day at the southern border, every day. And Joe Biden and his crew is doing nothing about enforcing that law. They are letting it go. And by the way, they announced during the presidential race they were going to let it go. And we need to have a president who acts like I did as governor, enforce the law first and foremost. And that means what I'll do on day one is sign an executive order to send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol to make sure that we stop the flow of fentanyl over the border, but also to make sure that we send a much different message. We want you here in this country to fill the 6 million vacant jobs we have, but only if you come here to follow the law and only if you come here legally. If you come here illegally, we will apprehend you and we will send you back across the border from which you came. And the fact is that until we set a law and order agenda in this country, not only now, but in the future, we won't be able to continue this. And I'll tell you this, Donald Trump failed on this as well. He said he was going to build a wall across the whole border. He built 52 miles of wall and said Mexico would pay for it. Guess what? I think if Mexico knew that he was only going to build 52 miles, they might have paid for the 52 miles.
Thank you, Governor. All right, Governor Haley. Most illegal immigrants are coming from countries south of the border. You've seen the Fox News drone. It's captured this steady stream of people coming into the country on a daily basis. In fact, I believe we have a live picture of it tonight. That is happening right now, live. In the last decade, the U.S. has spent nearly $55 billion to address the root causes of migration. But crime, poverty, and corruption, they persist, and the number of migrants is only growing. Are we wasting our money?
Well, what happens is when Joe Biden waved the green flag, it told everybody to come. And now we've seen 6 million people cross the border. We've had more fentanyl that have killed Americans in the Iraq, Vietnam, or Afghanistan wars combined. We need to make sure that we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on. So we have to secure the border. The way we do that is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. You see what's happening in Philadelphia right now. It's got to stop. We need to make sure we put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. I spent 400 miles down that border, and I'm telling you, Border Patrol agents aren't allowed to do their job. Let's go back to remain in Mexico policy. Instead of catch and release, let's go to catch and deport.
What about the aid that what about the aid that federal taxpayers are paying to deal with the root causes? It's not working.
The only aid that we should be spending right now is to secure the border, the southern border, the northern border, period. We need to keep Americans safe. And right now, Americans are not safe. Only when we fix the immigration system, only when we get the border secure, should we ever look at putting any more money into this. Our money should be about keeping Americans safe. We're not doing that. Joe Biden's not doing that. And you mentioned Congress and shutting down government. I'll make it clear. We have to change the budget process in 4 years. In 40 years. Congress has only delivered a budget on time 4 times in 40 years. If they don't keep the government open, they should not get paid. No pay, no budget. That's the way we should.
Governor DeSantis, we have a question for you. Governor DeSantis, China invested $12 billion in Latin America just last year. They signed strategic partnerships with 7 countries, including Mexico. And China's military ties to the region now include arms sales and training exercises. Are you comfortable with China deepening ties with our southern neighbors?
Of course not. And the reason why we're in this mess is because elites in D.C. for far too long have chosen surrender over strength when it comes to the CCP. Some people in our country got rich, our industrial base got hollowed out, and they have been able to build the second most powerful military in the entire world. We need a totally new approach to China. We are going to have real hard power in the Indo-Pacific, like Reagan, to deter their ambitions. We're going to have economic independence from China, where we're decoupling our economy, and we are going to go after the cultural power they have in this country. As governor of Florida, I banned the CCP from buying land in our state. We should do that all across these United States. We shouldn't have them in our universities. We shouldn't have Confucius institutes. So you see a country in decline, our power's in decline. China's going to surpass us this decade, and if they do that, that's going to affect every single American household. As your president, I am not going to let that happen. I'm going to reverse this country's decline. We are going to choose strength, not surrender when it comes to the CCP.
Happy he brought up Confucius Institute.
Me too. Yeah, not many do.
We are a country in retreat.
Propose, quote, universal deportation for all undocumented immigrants and their children, even if the children are citizens of the United States. Under what legal premise will you expel U.S. citizens?
So the first thing I want to say is I agree with everything. The Republicans on the stage are on the right side of this issue. Militarize the southern border, stop funding sanctuary cities, and end foreign aid to Mexico and Central America to end the incentives to come across. But I do go a step further. You're right about that, Ilya. I favor ending birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal immigrants in this country. Now, the left will howl about the Constitution and the 14th Amendment. The difference between me and them is I've actually read the 14th Amendment. What it says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship, then neither does the kid of an illegal migrant who broke the law to come here. And as the father of two sons, it is hard for me to look them in the eye and say, you have to follow the law when our own government fails to follow its own laws. That's how we really go the distance and solve this problem and restore the rule of law in the United States of America, because that is part of what it even means to be an American.
Senator Scott, you oppose ending birthright citizenship. What does Mr. Ramaswamy have wrong on that issue?
Yeah, there's no doubt the fact that when you think of the Constitution and the 14th Amendment, it was certainly written as it relates to slavery, not as it relates to illegal immigration. It's been applied to illegal immigration. So the challenge that we face is, in fact, one that has to do with whether or not the people that come here are under the jurisdiction of our laws. And frankly, if you come here illegally, you are not. Now, surviving a Supreme Court argument is something I can't tell you. But from a perspective of the Constitution, I think it's simple that clearly it was designed for slavery and not for illegal immigration. I'll go one step further, though. When we have a conversation about the things that are happening on this stage, we think about the fact that Vivek just said we were all good people. And I appreciate that, because last debate, he said we were all bought and paid for. And I thought about that for a little while and said, you know, I can't imagine.
Got taken off Facebook for copyright violations. I will bring the debate back.
Chinese
right now.
Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well. It's not nonsense.
So look, here's what I want to respond. These are good people who are tainted by a broken system. And it's not the fault of anybody who's involved.
Some of us are tainted.
Excuse me. Thank you for speaking while I'm interrupting while I'm speaking.
You said
if I may finish. If I may finish.
You can't be on both sides.
Gentlemen, you'll have your turn.
One of the challenges we should have
focus on the issues that matter. We know we did business in China. Everybody knows that.
If I may address.
Holding Joe Biden accountable. That's what we need to be.
I actually agree with Ron DeSantis.
Everybody speaking at the same time, no one can understand
Exactly.
your message.
So if I may, I agree with Ron DeSantis on China. When every other CEO expanded into the Chinese market, you know what I did with my first company? We opened a subsidiary in China. But you know what I did that was different than every other company? We got the hell out of there. And when I started my next company, Strive, right when it, no, that's years ago. Right when I started my next company, Strive, to compete against BlackRock. Excuse me. To compete against BlackRock, I made a commitment that we would never do business in China. And I will say something.
Yes. I think you have more than time to explain your point.
Well, if I was interrupted by a lot of people here, and I want to be respectful because I believe these are respectful
last debate.
but I do not believe in these. We're sitting here in the Reagan Library.
Yes, I wish you
in
did
the
not think it
honor
was
of
midnight
Ronald
in
Reagan's
America.
library, if I may. Well, from one admirer of Ronald Reagan to another. From one admirer of Reagan to another, we cannot see and violate Reagan's 11th commandment.
I want to hear about that.
Let's have a policy debate.
What's going on?
Let us have a policy debate.
Let's have about their records.
Let's have a policy debate. And the right answer is we need to declare independence from China, and I will see that through.
Vice President Pence, in 2017, the Trump-Pence administration canceled DACA, which put the legal status of 600,000 Dreamers in the hands of the courts. Dreamers work and they pay taxes. As president, if the Supreme Court ends DACA, would you work with Congress to reach a permanent solution for Dreamers?
Well, first, let me say I'm glad Vivek pulled out of his business deal in 2018 in China. That must have been about the time you decided to start voting in presidential elections. So, nice to have you participating in elections. So, let me speak to this issue. Number one, I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy with the Mexican government. We used economic power to bring the Mexican government to the table. We built hundreds of miles of border wall. And despite what's said here today, we reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. And as President of the United States, I can do it again. And the truth is, we need to fix a broken immigration system, and I'll do that as well. But first and foremost, a nation without borders is not a nation. And we have to secure the southern border of the United States of America. I know how to do it, and we will do it again. Let me say one other thing about China. Let me say one other thing about China.
Would you negotiate with Congress to give a solution to the problem that Dreamers have right now? They are on a limbo.
Well, let me tell you, I served in Congress for 12 years, although it seemed longer. But you know, something I've done different than everybody on this stage is I've actually secured reform in Congress. You know, Ron, you talk a really good game about cutting spending, but you've increased spending in Florida by 30%. When I was a member of Congress in 2006, right after Hurricane Katrina, Dana, you remember it, we stood our ground. I led House conservatives. We cut $100 billion out of the federal budget. It can be done, but as I said in the last debate, I'll say again, this is no time for on-the-job training. I'm going to be ready on day one to get Congress to step up, secure the southern border of the United States, build a military fitted to our times, and we're going to get spending in Washington, D.C. under control once and for all.
On the other side of this break, and I propose to go to a break. How will these candidates make America safer as rising crime plagues our cities? Debate night continues in moments.
Do you trust our government and where the economy is heading?
Okie dokie.
Does the thought of losing your hard-earned retirement savings to DC's reckless...
I've been working because actually I might be able to fast forward through this because we had those issues earlier, but I've been working on, because I know that the live stream got taken down off Facebook. I've been working to try to, okay, we're still on ads, but we're at least on live now. We should.
That's good.
Live. There we go. If we give it like a 30-second head start, then it should be fine.
Yeah, apparently it's just Rumble serving their bed. Yeah.
Gotcha. It's probably too many people trying to watch. I've been trying to go on to Facebook as well and update everybody who is trying to watch. I don't know if they're going to keep me from posting for a while because of that.
Potentially. I did say that I took notes for round one. I'm going to take notes through all the rounds.
Perfect. Everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be, it'll be back soon. Obviously, last thing, people were really watching on Facebook and everything, and now it's problematic. It's problematic. It's a problem. That's Bo Burnham.
That's Bo Burnham. There you go.
Yeah.
My funniest note, you're gonna hate this again. I put Christie equals Silver Fox. Man, that guy's going gray. Looking good though.
Still on YouTube. What did you think so far, round one?
Round one, I mean, I'm shocked by a lot of it. Vivek playing nice, not what I expected. You know, I respect all these guys. I like all these guys. DeSantis calling out Trump. Happy. I'm gonna keep count of that. I'm keeping a note of how many times DeSantis calls out Trump, how many times Christie calls out Trump, and how many times Vivek is called out. I'm gonna keep track of all that. But yeah, I mean, I think overall good first one. And Doug coming in, jumping in, awesome. I did not expect that at all.
No, not at all. Yeah, I was also very surprised.
I was like, Doug, what are you doing, man? Like, that's not. But I mean, you know what? I respect it though.
Absolutely. Let's see when this comes back here. Sorry, I'm trying to manage, like I said.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm gonna actually transfer some things to a different piece of paper.
Okay. When does this come back? I also got a speechless. Should be coming back soon here, everybody. I'll provide more commentary. It's just the tech stuff, man. Here we go. It's coming back right now for all of us.
Can't hear it.
Sorry. Here we go.
And the more you mention each other, that means the fewer questions you're going to get. Okay, so we want to talk about crime. This has been a horrendous problem in our country. The Fox News and others have been covering it. Governor Christie, crime in major cities is striking fear into the hearts of Americans. Just last night, looters took over the streets of Philadelphia. You said in the last debate that you would use U.S. attorneys to prosecute crimes local prosecutors won't. But they are stretched as well, and they could not handle all of the lawlessness, the shoplifting, all the carjackings, the armed robberies. They're all surging. Progressive prosecutors were elected by their constituents, and they can't be fired by a president. So what would you do to end the revolving door of criminality?
Well, look, Dana, I'm the only one on this stage who's done it. For 7 years, I ran the 5th largest office in this country. At the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, and we set records for the number of prosecutions that we brought that still have not been broken. And the reason was that we went after the crime that was affecting people's lives. And as president, I will appoint an attorney general and instruct that attorney general that you are to put all the resources that are necessary to bring our cities back under control. The fact is, they will be stretched. There's no doubt about that, but that's what they take the job for, because they love the idea of enforcing the law. We've got to bring law and order back to this country, and not just in our cities, but we need law and order back everywhere. We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel threatened there. And we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching.
Oh, God, this
and
guy.
You're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
How long did it take him to think of that?
Prosecutors in your state, but as president, you would not have the ability to do that. How do you think about dealing with the root causes of crime, especially this revolving door of the criminals that just get out and come back and commit another crime?
Well, the crime in these cities is one of the strongest signs of the decaying of America. We can't be successful as a country if people aren't even safe to live in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Just being in Southern California over the last couple of days, my wife and I have met 3 people who have been mugged on the street, and that would have never happened 10 or 20 years ago. In Florida, we back the blue. We support the men and women of law enforcement. They are keeping us safe. We have a 50-year low in the crime rate. And yes, when I had 2 progressive prosecutors that weren't following the law in Florida, I removed them from their post, and the people of Florida are safer as a result of it. As president, I will use the Justice Department to bring civil rights cases against all of those left-wing Soros-funded prosecutors. We're not going to let them get away with it anymore. We want to reverse this country's decline. We need to choose law and order over rioting and disorder.
On a related subject, Governor Haley, there's a nationwide policing shortage. Retirements are up, recruitment is in the tank, morale is at a record low. 3 years ago, you signed a pledge to support law enforcement. Now, pledges are a nice idea, but what's your actual plan to get more police on our streets?
Well, and I actually did it in South Carolina, too. You know, what we knew in South Carolina was you take care of those who take care of you. We have to start taking care of law enforcement, but it's not just taking care of them with words. It's making sure that you also follow through on what they do. Right now, we have a lot of stolen guns on the street. Well, these law enforcement officers, they arrest these people and then they go and they're let out the very next day. So law enforcement feels like no one has their back. We have to start prosecuting according to the law. We have to make sure we have the backs of law enforcement, and we have to make sure that we're a country of law and order. But I want to go back to China because I don't think we spent enough time on that. Right now, we have to look at what government's doing to hurt us against China, too. You have a company, U.S. Antibiotics, that produces amoxicillin, the #1 antibiotic that we need. And right now, there is a company in Bristol, Tennessee, that produces that. Yet our federal government only gets it from China. We need to be focusing on companies that produce in America and supporting those companies that produce in America, not companies that are helping China.
Governor, we will be talking foreign policy later. Delia?
Yes. Thank you, Stuart. We're going to stay in the topic of crime because it affects all of us. Governor Burgum, for the first time ever, a Univision poll found that mass shootings and gun safety are one of the most important issues for Latino voters. Mental health concerns are not unique to the United States, but gun violence is. What is your specific plan to curb gun violence?
Well, first we need to know is understand is I think that the liberal left seems to be just completely bent on prosecuting law-abiding citizens that are gun owners, because every solution they have to this is take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans, and somehow that's going to solve the problem. But all these cities that we're talking about that you showed the videos of tonight, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. So we know that that's not what's working. What we have to do is get back to the core issues about the family. We have to get back to behavioral health and mental health. We've got to get back to actually enforcing the laws these people talked about. And like we've done in North Dakota, where we've got the goal and we're on the track to being the most military-friendly state in the nation. We've got the most military and the most support of what we're doing in terms of law enforcement, because the morale is down because we've been defunding the police, because they've been attacked in the press. The police have become the bad guys when they're the one. There's all these jobs available in America. Why would you be a policeman if people don't even respect them? Every time I see a policeman, the first thing I say is thank you. And so does everybody else in my family and most of the people in our state, because they know we have to respect the people that are out there defending us every single day.
Can I answer the question on mass shooting?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, and 57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens. How would you stop fentanyl brought into the country, mostly by U.S. citizens, through ports of entry?
There's two sides to this, and we have to be very honest about it. One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall. Semi-trucks can drive through them. We have to use our own military to seal the Swiss cheese of a southern border. But we also have to be honest. There's a demand-side problem in this country, too, a mental health epidemic. I met family in Iowa, two parents, Kathy and Derek. They lost their son, Sebastian, 17 years old. He bought Percocet on Snapchat, and then he died. Why did he die? Because it was laced with fentanyl. That is closer to bioterrorism, not a drug overdose. That is poisoning. So it is our job to make sure that never happens. But it's also our job to make sure that 17-year-olds don't turn to Percocet via Snapchat. We have to bring back mental health care in this country, not with pump-in pharmaceuticals, but with faith-based approaches that restore purpose and meaning in the next generation of Americans. Many of them are getting it through social media. And this isn't a Republican point or a Democrat point, but if you're 16 years old or under, you should not be using an addictive social media product, period. This is something that we can both agree on, and we can revive both the mental
Interesting
health of this
take.
country
Also
while stopping the
pointing
fentanyl
out the
epidemic
fact that he used common debate tactic of bringing up a personal story from some random person that they met on the campaign trail.
Current president we have, we will step up and address.
You'll notice it. Maybe not all of them will do it tonight, but usually candidates do that. It could be a totally made up story, but it just makes them sound like I'm in touch with the average person.
Exactly.
That's why, as Commander-in-Chief, I'm going to use the U.S. military to go after the Mexican drug cartels. They are killing our people. And the stories that I've seen in Florida, we had an infant, 18 months, parents rented an Airbnb. And apparently the people that had rented it before were using drugs. The infant was crawling, the toddler was crawling on the carpet and ingested fentanyl residue and died. Are we just going to sit here and let this happen, this carnage happen in our country? I am not going to do that. So I guarantee you on day one, this border is going to be a day one issue for me as president. We're going to declare it a national emergency. Yes, we'll build the wall. We'll do remain in Mexico. But those Mexican drug cartels are going to be treated like the foreign terrorist organizations that they are.
President Pence. All right, Vice President Pence. We're going to move on to a different issue. Hold on, sir. Vice President Pence.
$5 billion.
Just last month, Vice President Pence, you said if elected, you would repeal all Obamacare mandates. However, you also made that same promise in 2016. And at that time, Trump-Pence had congressional majorities for at least the first 2 years, and you did not deliver on that promise. So Obamacare, right now, it is more popular than ever.
Looks like he's gonna cry.
Why should Americans trust you if you become president to fix that, or is Obamacare here to stay?
Well, first, let me
This is the Rumble issue again.
speak to the mass shootings issue.
Let's go do this real quick.
At that time, Trump-Pence had congressional majorities for at least the first 2 years, and you did not deliver on that promise. So Obamacare, right now, it is more popular than ever. Why should Americans trust you if you become president to fix that, or is Obamacare here to stay?
Well, first, let me speak to the mass shootings issue, and then I'll answer that question. It's an important one, Dana. Look, I'm someone that believes that justice delayed is justice denied. And as a father of three, as the grandfather of three beautiful little girls, I am sick and tired of these mass shootings happening in the United States of America. And if I'm president of the United States, I'm going to go to the Congress of the United States, and we're going to pass a federal expedited death penalty for anyone involved in a mass shooting so that they will meet their fate in months, not years. It is unconscionable that the Parkland shooter, Ron, is actually going to spend the rest of his life behind bars in Florida. That's not justice.
Ron's against
We have
that.
to mete out justice and send a message to these would-be killers that you are not going to live out your days behind bars. You're going to
Ron just looks like, I can't believe he just said my name.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Call him out.
Well, thank you for reiterating the question, because I'd love to answer it. Look, I think it's one of the choices here. You know, my former running mate, Donald Trump, actually has a plan to start to consolidate more power in Washington, D.C., consolidate more power in the executive branch. If I'm president of the United States, it's my intention to make the federal government smaller by returning to the states those resources and programs that are rightfully theirs under the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. That means all Obamacare funding, all housing funding, all HHS funding, all of it goes back to the states. We'll shut down the federal Department of Education. We'll allow states to innovate. We're going to revive federalism in America, and states are going to help bring America back.
Stu, go ahead.
May I remind everyone to keep within their time frame so that we can get as many questions in as possible. This question for Governor DeSantis. Over 26 million Americans don't have insurance coverage. Governor DeSantis, 2.5 million of them are in your state. That's worse than the national average. Can Americans trust you on this?
Well, I think this is a symptom of our overall economic decline. Everything has gotten more expensive. You see insurance rates are going through the roof. People that are going to get groceries. I spoke with a woman in Iowa, and she said, you know, for the first time in my life, I'm having to take things out of my grocery cart when I get to the checkout line because the total goes up so quickly. So this is very real, and people are hurting out there. So we've got to address the underlying problem with Bidenomics, the overspending, taking all Biden's rules and regulations. I'm going to throw them in the trash can on day one. You're not going to have to worry about that. We're going to open up all of our energy. We will be energy dominant in this country. That will lower your gas prices. And what we need to do with healthcare is recognize our healthcare is putting patients at the back of the bus. We have big pharma, big insurance, and big government, and we need to tackle that and have more power for the people and the doctor-patient relationship.
Governor, why is your record in Florida on insurance worse than the national average?
Our state's a dynamic state. We've got a lot of folks that come. Of course, we've had a population boom. We also don't have a lot of welfare benefits in Florida. You know, we're basically say this is a field of dreams. You can do well in the state, but we're not going to be like California and have massive numbers of people on government programs without work requirements. We believe you work and you got to do that. And so that's That goes for all the welfare benefits. And you know what that's done, Stuart? Our unemployment rate is the lowest amongst any big state. We have the highest GDP growth of any big state. And even CNBC, no fan of mine, ranked Florida the #1 economy in America.
On the topic of healthcare, Governor Haley, healthcare is the leading cause of bankruptcy for American families, accounting for 2/3 of all personal bankruptcies. As president, how you protect Americans who get sick from financial ruin?
First of all, how can we be the best country in the world and have the most expensive health care in the world? We have an issue. My mom was in the hospital, and when she was in the hospital, they tried to bring her a couple of Tylenol, and she said, I don't need it. And they said, honey, go ahead and take it because you're paying for it anyway. Why is it that when we got the bill, the insurance company and the hospital negotiated the bill for her without her having anything to do with it? When I am president, we will break all of it, from the insurance company to the hospitals, to the doctor's offices, to the PBMs, to the pharmaceutical companies. We will make it all transparent, because when you do that, you will realize that's what the problem is. Second thing is you've got to deal with tort law. The doctors don't give you the 10 tests because they want to. It's because of the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we need to bring competition back to healthcare, get rid of certificate of need systems, and make sure that they can compete. We have to put the patient in the driver's seat. They've been in the back seat for way too long. And once we give the patient the ability to decide their health care, deciding which plan they want, that is when we will see magic happen. But we're going to have to make every part of the industry open up and show us where their warts are, because they all have them, and we need to fix this on behalf of the American people.
And that's what we did.
Do you have a better way in 30 seconds?
Well, yes, we're not talking about the real problem ever. We talk about why do we have the most expensive health care in the world? It's because the federal government got involved the same way they did with EVs, and they said, we're going to subsidize a particular kind of software back in 2008 under Obama. And they said, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to make everyone more productive. All of you that are watching have been to a doctor's office when the doctor's got his back to you and their hands on a keyboard. The only industry in the world that's ever absorbed $1 trillion of IT and became less productive, they saw less patients per day, is U.S. healthcare, because they were subsidizing a certain kind of technology. It wasn't about improving healthcare. It was about picking winners and losers. Every time the federal government's involved, whether it's higher education, healthcare, or now the auto industry, things get more expensive and less competitive.
That was a great transition, because we are going to move on the future of education in America. What's the government's role in finding a way forward? The second Republican debate rolls on from Simi Valley.
An informed patriotism is what we want. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world?
So I will not be coming back onto Facebook anytime soon. Apparently, I am banned from posting for 3 days now because because Fox Business didn't like that I was airing this, and so the only way to get restored is to have them send a letter to Facebook that says, "Hey, you can put it back up. It's fine," which I don't think Fox Business is going to do. So.
That's so stupid.
So stupid, but I'm still here on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, why are they treating this like it's it's public domain?
To me,
it should be.
This is basically C-SPAN. Like, if you're gonna air a presidential debate, like, okay, like if I was airing like full episodes of Tucker, well, not Tucker Carlson anymore, but like Sean Hannity, then okay, like I get it. But like, we're airing a presidential debate right here. Who do you think's winning so far? I think DeSantis has had a great night so far. He's been a little bit more active in the debate, I'd say. I think all of them have been. I think all of them have been a little bit hungrier, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, DeSantis has had really good answers. I think he's covered everything well. I wish they would have let him respond to Pence's claim about the debt. I wish they would let him respond to that. I do think, and we were talking to our friends. I said it's weird to see Vivek and DeSantis kind of working together here.
A little bit, yeah.
Kind of being friendly, like when DeSantis is like, let's just get back to the questions. And Vivek's like, I agree. Let's get back to the actual problems. I think that's really interesting to see. That's really cool. Doug coming and swinging and really coming in strong. I think Doug's doing good. Vivek's playing.
Well, he knows he has. I think the thing is that Doug is proven himself enough to where now, because he's proven himself enough from the first debate, and obviously he's polling at 3% around there. He's like, wow. He probably came in and he was at the first one. He was like, well, I'm just lucky to be here. I'm just going to answer the questions that are asked of me. Now he's like, well, maybe like it's still a long shot in hell, but I'm still here. So like, I got to prove myself more. I got to show people more.
I even wrote, I think, where'd I write it? Oh, I said, Doug, sounds strong, looks good. Sleeper? ?
Yeah, like I said, I still don't think.
I agree. I agree, but I think he's proven himself more than I thought he would.
He's an interesting guy. I'd love to see a little bit more out of him. Like not necessarily in that role, but I mean, he's been a relatively I hate to say it because if anybody is from North Dakota, I love you, but North Dakota is a kind of inconsequential state. Like I mean, it's kind of like Iowa if Iowa didn't have so much to do with presidential elections. Like it's like okay.
I mean, I think North Dakota is a huge agriculture state though, and I think that can't be ignored.
Yeah, but I think they get what 3 delegates for the general. Like they're not anything. They're not anything massive. Like the thing is like you want to like look at New Jersey. Okay, Chris Christie's from New Jersey. That's like if you were to get half of New Jersey's population votes, what would that be like? A few million?
Yeah.
Like probably equivalent to the amount of people that live in North Dakota. So that's kind of.
Yeah. No. You're sorry. Continue.
Yeah. What I was saying is like, so you look at that. You look at DeSantis is from Florida. Mike Pence is from Indiana, but he's also the former vice president. Like you have all of the other ones have like just much more notoriety. And have made a name for themselves in some way, whether that's good or bad, but they all have some level of like, hey, this is Burgum is from a state that most Americans don't really care about. Like, not that they shouldn't. Like, I mean, obviously there's something that it provides to the United States. There's no doubt about that. But most the vast majority of America probably, I guarantee you, if you were to ask the vast majority of Americans, list out the 50 states, they could probably forget that North Dakota exists. Like that could be one, you know? And so that's my point being is like, he hasn't had anything to put his name on the map. This kind of could be it. Honestly, that might be what he's doing. He's trying to put his name on the map now so he can go for something bigger down the road.
Potentially. I will say I have a friend who's texting me watching this and she says, man, Vivek has a big forehead. I found that funny.
Interesting. All right, let's get back.
Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in the Air Force One Pavilion for the second Republican debate. And let's get back to our questions, Governor Haley. American students, they are in academic trouble. They have lower scores in math and reading. There's chronic absenteeism. That's at record highs. And this has even been called education homicide. You say school choice is the answer, but South Carolina, your home state, still has not enacted universal school choice, and even the current expansion won't be fully implemented until 2027. Parents can't wait 4 years for a fix. So what would you do right now?
Well, and school choice isn't the only answer, but I'll tell you, it's not out of a lack of trying that we didn't try and get school choice in South Carolina. What I'll tell you, first of all, is we have to acknowledge the fact that 67% of our 8th graders are not proficient in reading or math. Over 80% of our 8th graders aren't proficient in history or civics. And recently they came out and said our 12 and 13-year-olds are scoring at the lowest levels they've been scoring in reading and math in decades. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure we catch our kids back up. We have to make sure they can read. A child that can't read by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school. We need to do reading remediation. We need complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. We need to make sure that we have school choice so that there's competition. We need to move all the programs from the federal government down to the states and let states decide what education looks like in their states. Right. And we need to start building things in America again. Let's put vocational classes back in our high schools and let's get our kids building the things that we know that we can make. When we start to focus on that and really bring in that parental involvement, that's when we'll start to see a difference. But we've got to get parents back included. We've got to quit spending time on this DEI and CRT and instead focus on financial literacy, on digital literacy, and on making sure that our kids know what they need to do to have the jobs of the next generation.
That was a good answer, honestly.
Great answer. Phenomenal.
On the subject of education, a question for Governor Christie. Students in
Christie,
your
all right.
state are getting high marks on their report cards, but minorities are not doing well with math and reading. Black and Hispanic students averaging 29 points lower than white students in New Jersey. Would you address minorities first?
You have to address all students. And look, in our state, Stuart, frankly, before I was governor, that gap was close to 50%. And what we did was institute more charter schools and more Renaissance schools and more public school choice in New Jersey with innovative solutions in cities like Camden, where now we took what was the worst school district in America during my time, and we have now increased that by nearly 40% in terms of their proficiency. It can be done when you give people choice. But let's tell the truth to everybody about what this is. This public school system is no longer run by the public. It is run by the teachers' unions in this country. Randy Weingarten and her crew are absolutely strangling. They are taking the worst of their members and defending them rather than advocating for our kids. And when you have the President of the United States sleeping with a member of the teachers union, there is no chance that you could take the stranglehold away from the teachers union every day. They have an advocate inside the White House every day for the worst of their teachers, not for our students to be the best they can be. A President of the United States is to take on the teachers union. I did it in New Jersey, and I will do it as
I'll
President of the
never
United States.
be mad about going after the teachers union, but I just want to put that was just a dumb question.
I have a question for you.
Focusing on it's
Florida's new Black History curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be
good.
for their
I want to
personal
answer this.
benefit. You have said slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it. But many are still hurt. For descendants of slaves, this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing that. Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great Black history scholars. So we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education. We're ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6-, 5-, and 3-year-old. This is personal to us. We didn't just talk about universal school choice. We enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights. We enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory, and we now have American civics and the Constitution in our schools in a really big way, just like President Reagan asked for in his farewell address back in 1989. Florida is showing how it's done. We're standing with parents, and our kids are benefiting.
Senator Scott, you oppose to these new standards. What is your message for Governor DeSantis?
There is not a redeeming quality in slavery. He and Kamala
shut up.
should have just taken the one sentence out. America has suffered because of slavery, but we've overcome that. We are the greatest nation on earth because we faced our demons in the mirror and made a decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society, where they decided to put money, where they decided to take the Black father out of the household to get a check in the mail. And you can now measure that in unemployment, in crime, in devastation. If you want to restore hope, you've got to restore the family, restore capitalism, and put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand new leader. And I'm asking for your vote.
I'm going to have a question for you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Over 10.7 million students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification.
Here we go.
Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is. I met two young women early in this campaign.
Specifically on parental rights in school.
Parents have the right to know. And you know what the hypocrisy of this is? Even New Hampshire failed to actually get past a piece of legislation.
She asked a yes or
The
no
very people
question.
who
Just want to
say that
remind
this
everybody.
increases the risk of suicide are also the ones saying that parents don't have the right to know about that increased risk of suicide. And I'm sorry, it is not compassionate to affirm a kid's confusion. That is not compassion, that is cruelty. I met two young women, Chloe and Katie, early in this campaign.
Another
who were in their
story from
20s,
Vivek
now
about people he met on a
getting
campaign
double
trail.
mastectomies and a hysterectomy. One of them will never have children. And the fact that we allowed that to happen in this country is barbaric. So I will ban genital mutilation or chemical
Okay, but I
castration
wanna know,
under the age of 18, and
specifically
parents have absolutely
Would you
the
try
right.
to pass a federal law that says parents should have that right?
We are going to require states absolutely have to
Then I
follow
wanna
that through.
ask Governor
We
Burgum just to
stand
follow
for
up on
parental
this
rights.
because
Yes.
you in your state you do not have a law that says parents can't be notified, but you want to be president. Would you try to pass a federal law to say parents have that right?
I think this is a state's issue, but I do want to say something because all night long we've been talking about issues about how it's broken in Washington, and I respect all of the people on the stage here for their 100+ years of public service. Thank you. But the reason why we're not talking about education or healthcare or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader. I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on stage, thousands of high-paying jobs that have real meaning. So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer. So in North Dakota, instead of fighting with the teachers' unions, we actually created a K-12 coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room and the customer is
But
the
you
student.
do understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yeah.
Another Rumble issue here.
And that's why we have 50. We actually created a K-12 coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room and the customer is
But
the
you
student.
do understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yes, and that's why we have 50 platforms of innovation. That's why we have states. There are certain things the federal government is supposed to do. It's not the Department of Education that needs to be assembled. We got to move it back to states. Do what we did in North Dakota. Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school, the old way with the teachers union, the kids are trapped. We made every school in North Dakota an innovation school. Every school got out from under the red tape, and the things that help teach the values that we're trying to get, like 4-H, like FFA, like Boy Scouts, they can get credit for all of that stuff in North Dakota. And by the way, North Dakota is now at the top of the median SAT scores in the country right now.
Vice President Pence, the Department of Homeland Security warns that violence against LGBTQ+ people is on the rise and intensifying. According to a recent study, members of that community are 9 times more likely to be victims of violent hate crimes. As president, how would you protect this community from violent attacks and discrimination?
Well, as President of the United States, I'll stand up for the safety and the civil liberties of every American from every background. And I want the American people to know that. But I want to answer the question as well, Dana, that you just asked Doug Burgum. Because by way of full disclosure, Chris, you mentioned the president's situation. My wife isn't a member of the teachers union, but I got to admit, I've been sleeping with her for 38 years. And
what a
full disclosure, look, education is a state and local function. The state of Indiana had one of the very first school choice programs in the country.
That's so
when I was
weird.
governor of the state of Indiana, we doubled it. And as to your question, Dana, let's be very, very clear. When the Linn-Mar Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents. I weighed in.
That's what I said.
Foundation. That's not bad policy. That's crazy. We're going to stand up for the rights of parents, and we're going to pass a federal ban on transgender chemical or surgical surgery anywhere in the country. We've got to protect our kids from this radical gender ideology agenda, and we've got to empower parents at the state level. with the ability to choose where their kids go to school, whether it's public, private, parochial, or homeschool. You empower parents, and our schools will straighten up and reflect our values and focus on the basics faster than you could possibly imagine.
Next subject.
Can I just say one thing?
China is investing. If you talk over everybody, we lose time. China is investing heavily in their tech companies. $280 billion every year on semiconductor research and development. That is one CHIPS Act per year. Governor DeSantis, you say companies like Google and Meta have too much power. Doesn't going after them give China an edge?
No, I think you look at how our societies develop, they have huge amount of power over our society. They've cracked down on free speech. We're not saying you don't want them to do business, but you want it to be a free market. And right now they're monopolies. But this issue of China, I think, is really going to be fundamental. We have subcontracted out so much of our national needs to the CCP. We rely on them for a whole host of issues. We need to reshore and we need to decouple all those important industries. We need to get that back in the United States. They are our top geopolitical adversary by a country mile. Xi Jinping's got huge ambitions, not only in the Asia Pacific, but as you mentioned earlier, in our region. But ultimately, we've got to beat him on the economy. And so that's what we'll do as president of the United States.
Governor Christie, I wanted to follow up on this because 22% of American workers fear their jobs will be lost to a robot. And you said in the past that the free market is the way to go. Would you retrain workers who lose a job to artificial intelligence, and to do what?
Well, look, what I think artificial intelligence offers us is an extraordinary opportunity to expand well beyond the productivity that we have now, and to have Americans be able to be involved in that revolution, Dana. You know, each time we have shown incredible innovation and progress in this country. What we've done with it is to expand all kinds of new, even unthought of opportunities for folks. Yes, we have to do retraining for folks who lose some of their jobs, and we should be doing that. And we should have more training available both at the county college level and the local level for people to be able to access it. So yes, I would be in favor of that. But this is a much bigger issue than that. We can't be afraid of innovation. America has been the great innovator of this world over the last 250 years, a technological innovator, a manufacturing innovator, and a freedom and governmental innovator. And that's why America has to continue to stand strong in the world, pro-innovation, pro-progress. And I will tell you this, as President of the United States, what I will do is to make sure that every innovator in this country gets the government the hell off its back and out of its pocket so that it can innovate and bring great new inventions to our country that will make everybody's lives better.
Mr. Ramaswamy, TikTok is banned on government-issued devices because of its ties to the Chinese government. Yet you joined TikTok after dinner with boxer and influencer Jake Paul. Should the commander-in-chief be so easily persuaded by an influencer?
So the answer is I have a radical idea for the Republican Party. We need to win elections. And part of how we win elections is reaching the next generation of young Americans where they are. So when I get into office, I've been very clear. Kids under the age of 16 should not be using addictive social media. We're only going to ever get to declaring independence from China, which I favor, if we actually win. So while the Democrats are running rampant, reaching the next generation 3-1, there's exactly one person in the Republican Party which talks a big game about reaching young people, and that's me. And let me level with all of you. I'm the new guy here, and so I know I have to earn your trust. What do you see? You see a young man who's in a bit of a hurry, maybe a little ambitious, bit of a know-it-all, it seems at times. I'm here to tell you, no, I don't know it all. I will listen. I will have the best people, the best and brightest in this country, whatever age they are,
Jake Paul.
Me. We will be probably many of the
Jake
people
Paul's
on
the
the
best
stage
and brightest?
included. That's how I built my companies. I want to be
Okay.
challenged. I want people who disagree with me. That's what makes America great, because we're not a perfect nation. We're founded on the pursuit of perfection. That is what makes America
yelling?
great. And that is why we will end it once we win this election.
I have to jump. I have to jump in here.
Doug.
I'm sorry. I have
Doug!
There's one person on this.
This is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've
She
done,
just lost the young
every
vote.
time I hear you, I feel a
And I
little
don't think it's
dumber
also
for what
it's not
you say.
accurate.
Because I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can
Let me
get
just say,
text messages, they can get all of
this
these
is important.
things.
This is
China
very important
knows
for our party.
exactly what they're
This
doing.
is very important
and
for our party, and I'm going to say it.
You've gone and you've
We
helped
should
China
stop.
make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you. We can't trust you. We can't have TikTok and
I think that this is very important.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 15 seconds.
I think, excuse me.
You have 15 seconds, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. I think we would be better served as a Republican Party if we're not sitting here hurling personal insults and actually have a legitimate debate about policy following Reagan's 11th Commandment in his honor. And the answer is that is what actually makes our country strong. And I believe in these people. These are good people on the stage. They disagree, but let's have a legitimate disagreement. That's what I would say.
Stuart, can we get back to the question?
No, we cannot. Governor DeSantis, I'm going straight.
DeSantis laughing.
We will have to cut your mic.
Can we get back to the question, please?
I don't.
No, we cannot.
So, Governor DeSantis, let me go to you. Experts say President Putin has ordered assassinations across Europe, cheated on arms control treaties with the U.S., and seeks to work with China to force our decline. President Reagan believed that if you want to prevent a war, you better be prepared to fight one. Today, the Republican Party is at odds over aid to Ukraine. The price tag so far is $76 billion. But is it in our best interest to degrade Russia's military for less than 5% of what we pay annually on defense, especially when there are no U.S. soldiers in the fight?
It's in our interest to end this war, and that's what I will do as president. We are not going to have a blank check. We will not have U.S. troops, and we're going to make the Europeans do what they need to do. But they've sent money to pay bureaucrats' pensions and salaries and funding small businesses halfway around the world. Meanwhile, our own country is being invaded. We don't even have control of our own territory. We have got to defend the American people before we even worry about all these other things. And I watch these guys in Washington, D.C., and they don't care about the American people. They don't care about the fentanyl deaths. They don't care about the communities being overrun because of this border. They don't care about the Mexican drug cartels. So as Commander-in-Chief, I will defend this country's sovereignty.
But it's not a territorial dispute. It's never been a territorial dispute.
And 90% of the resources that we send over to Ukraine is guaranteed as a loan. It is not 90% of the money that we send over there is loan. Well, we can talk about this, but at the end of the day, 90% of the money that we send over there is actually in the form of a loan. It's not actually not paid by Ukraine, it's paid by the NATO, our NATO allies.
So I think it's a good topic.
You want to know who pays the majority into NATO?
NATO, we do.
Exactly.
That our national vital interest is in degrading the Russian military. By degrading the Russian military, we actually keep our homeland safer, we keep our troops at home, and we all understand Article 5 of NATO.
We have to level with the American people.
I thought you said something about waiting until your turn to talk. So at the end of the day, I'm going to finish I'll be happy to
go ahead and then I'll respond.
I'll look forward to this one right now. So at the end of the day, when you think about the fact that if you want to keep American troops at home, the attack on NATO territory would bring us and our troops in. By degrading the Russian military, we reduce, if not eliminate, an attack on NATO territory.
Finish that exchange. We have to level with the American people. We have to level with the American people on this issue. The reality is just because Putin's an evil dictator does not mean that Ukraine is good. This is a country that has
I agree
banned
with
11
that.
opposition parties.
That's
A
yeah.
win
That has
for
actually-
Russia is a
that
win
is not
for
true.
China.
We're driving
a win
Russia.
for Russia
Excuse
is a
me.
win for China.
Excuse me, and if you have
but
a chance,
I forgot you like
you'll
China.
have-
That's
nope,
why you're.
you'll have your chance in just a moment.
Yeah.
The hurling personal insults isn't helping. China is the real enemy, and we're driving Russia further into China's arms. We need a reasonable peace plan to end this, especially this is a country whose president just last week
Vivek,
was
if you
hailing a
let
Nazi in
Putin
his own
have
ranks.
Ukraine, that's a green light to China to take Taiwan.
We need a
Peace
reasonable
comes
plan
through
to
strength.
We need a reasonable plan to peace.
Governor
The
Christie.
Communist Party of China is the real enemy. not
Governor
Russia.
Christie.
They're all just yelling now.
Governor Christie. President Biden's first 2 years have brought China, Russia, and Iran closer together. Are we focused too much on Ukraine and not enough on this threat from the New World Order?
No, they're all connected, Stuart. They're all connected. The Chinese are paying for the Russian war in Ukraine. The Iranians are supplying more sophisticated weapons, and so are the North Koreans now as well, with the encouragement of the Chinese. The naivete on this stage.
I don't think he's
from some
wrong,
of
but he
these folks
sounds
is
like a
extraordinary.
conspiracy theorist
Look,
and how he says it.
I understand people want to go and talk to Putin. Guess what?
Like a
So
whack
did
job
George W.
conspiracy
Bush.
theorist.
So did Barack Obama. So did Donald Trump. And so did Joe Biden when he said a small invasion wouldn't be so bad. Every one of them has been wrong. And the fact of the matter is, we need to say right now that the Chinese-Russian alliance is something we have to fight against, and we are not going to solve it by going over and cuddling up to Vladimir Putin. Look, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin was brilliant and a great leader. This is the person who is murdering people in his own country, and now not having enough blood, he's now going to Ukraine to murder innocent civilians and kidnap 20,000 children. And let me tell you, if you think that's where it's going to stop, if we give him any of Ukraine, next will be Poland. This is a guy who said, wait one sec, this is a guy in 1991 who said that was the darkest moment in world history when the Soviet Union fell. Listen, everybody, he wants to put the old band back together, and only America can stop it. And when I'm president, we will.
Governor Burgum, I want to get to Governor Burgum. He hasn't had a chance. I have a question I think you're going to really like, or at least you have experience in it. And we need to talk about America's farmers because there is a foreign policy connection here. The U.S. and China are in this fierce economic competition. It's hurting American businesses, and there is blowback against American farmers because China then targets them in retaliation. How would you, as president, protect American farmers and ranchers from that kind of retaliation from a foreign government like China?
Well, first of all, we've got the best farmers and ranchers in the world right here in America. If they have a level playing field, they can outcompete anyone in the world. But this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that. But we're also in an economic war through what we're doing with agriculture and energy. And we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration whose whole policy is appeasement. They're out there, creating the world, making it less safe. $6 billion they traded for 5 people. They've just now set a price.
Sorry, Rumble being problematic once again. I'll get this fixed. Just got to go back.
On anyone's head who's a tourist from America, who's a student from America, for kidnapping. If you want more kidnapping, put a price on it. And then they're also helping Iran get to have more closer to nuclear weapon, which pushes all of the Middle East closer to China and Russia. The whole thing is absurd. And then, of course, we're going to give Ukraine to Russia, and then we're going to give Taiwan to China and think that's a foreign policy. That will make our nation less successful, make us more poor. And at the core of all that is energy policy, because China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day. They're the largest import in the world. And we've had 4 cabinet members from the Biden administration there this summer, and none of them talked about U.S. energy. The first one to go to each of those countries was Kerry to talk about the folly of the climate policy, which is making the world less stable. It's empowering dictators. It's not about climate change that we need worried about. It's about the Biden climate policies that are actually the existential threat to America's future.
Thank you.
Can I speak about
Governor Haley, Mexico's president called who supports sending U.S. military into the country, quote, scoundrels. Mexico is the United States' most important trade partner and border security. You say you will send special operations to attack the cartels in Mexico. So this means boots on the ground Drone strikes?
It means special operations. It's how we deal with our terrorists. And what you need to do is understand that Mexico's not being a good partner if we lost 75,000 Americans last year. Mexico's not being a good partner if they're letting the cartels get away with what they're getting away with. What we will do is we will make sure that we send in our special operations and we will take out the cartels, we'll take out their operations, we'll take out anything that's doing it. But we're going to go after China because China is the one sending the fentanyl in the first place. And we will end all normal trade relations until China stops sending fentanyl. And then we'll do the special operations and we'll get it from both sides. This is where President Trump went wrong. He focused on trade with China. He didn't focus on the fact that they were buying up our farmland. He didn't focus on the fact that they were killing Americans. He didn't focus on the fact that they were stealing $600 billion in intellectual property. He didn't focus on the fact that they put a spy base off our shores in Cuba. They didn't focus enough on the fact that all of our law enforcement drones in America are Chinese, and we've got all these little surveillance cells. We need to start focusing on what keeps Americans safe. That hasn't happened in a long time. As your president, I will make sure every American is safe, and we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen.
All right. I want to get to Senator Scott. You're all auditioning for the job as president of the United States. You want to earn these votes. But the world's problems land in the Oval Office. During the presidential debates in the year 2000, neither Al Gore nor George W. Bush was asked about al-Qaeda. Yet, just 1 year later, al-Qaeda's attack on September 11th claimed nearly 3,000 lives. And the farther we get from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. Senator Scott, you have no executive branch experience. What has prepared you to protect the nation from a major man-made national security crisis?
One of the things I've had the good fortune of doing is serving on committees in the United States Senate, like the Senate Armed Services Committee. I'm on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also on the Finance Committee and the Banking Committee. Talk about addressing the issue of fentanyl. I've written the legislation, passed it through the Banking Committee and the Senate that would freeze the assets and sanction the accounts of the Mexican cartels. There are weapons that we have within the arsenal that I was able to get past 23-0 in the polarizing Senate as it is. I've also understood without question the fact that if you look at the details before 9/11, there was information and intelligence that was available that suggested an attack was coming. Having the right intelligence partners with us is key to making sure that we prevent the next 9/11 from ever happening. Having that experience for the last 10 years is really important in getting the job done.
30 seconds to you, Mr. Pence.
Well, I think you asked a question about executive experience. I think it's vitally important. And I stand before you today as a candidate for president because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. And you hear the fire on the stage tonight. You hear the fire in all of our voices. And it's because Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. This is a time for those of us that have the experience, the tested experience, and a commitment to the conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan brought forward in this party of a strong national defense, standing with our allies, standing up to our enemies, supporting limited government and traditional values, need to step forward.
Understood.
Because frankly, our party does face a time for choosing, as I said at the top of this debate, whether we're going to stand on the foundation of that conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan poured, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism unmoored to conservative principles. I'm the most experienced, most qualified, and most consistent conservative in this field, and I'm ready to lead America at home and abroad on day one.
Time for choosing to go to a break.
We need to go to a commercial break where Reagan built a coalition that lasted decades. Can any of these candidates do the same? We'll take that up when the debate continues.
Okay, so there is that segment. Interesting. Got
that was
issues there.
Yeah, that one was it was interesting for sure. That was the most heated so far.
For sure. I just posted a link into all the chats if you're interested in joining the panel for a short discussion after the debate on your thoughts. You can follow that link, and immediately following the debate, we'll give just some overview thoughts, the highlights. I'll see what's trending on Twitter a little bit, and then we can also have anybody who's interested in joining to talk more about what your thoughts on the debate were. I'd love to have you guys on. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe, ring that notification bell, put it to all, everything like that. I've just been handling, man, I gotta see what some of these highlights are and stuff, because I've been going through a lot of the tech side of things, going through Facebook since I got taken down because of stupid Facebook taking me down, claiming it's copyright infringement. Stupid Facebook.
It is stupid.
I always call YouTube ScrewTube. I need another name. So YouTube ScrewTube. I need a name for Facebook. What should I call Facebook? Lamebook? Nah, I got the Lamestream media already.
I can swear, right?
Yeah, you can do it.
Fuck Facebook.
It's not really a name, but I like the chant.
Fuck face.
Fuck Facebook.
Fuck Facebook.
Fuck
face is one word.
Yeah, that's like when Tim Scott earlier said "build back broker." I was just like, I see where you're going with it. It just doesn't work as much, you know.
It's funny. I mean, I don't know.
It's a quip.
I do think Pence saying. I think. Who was it? Was it Andy that said it was cringy?
I've slept with a teacher.
I've slept with a teacher for 38 years. It's like, all right, cool.
Yeah, it's a little awkward.
It's like, cool. I don't know. I found it kind of funny. I was just like, all right.
The Donald Duck line is one thing that's going viral right now. On
that
Twitter.
Was funny. Donald Duck was I
thought it was
Donald Duck instead of Donald Trump. I thought that was good.
Looking to see what else is going on. Somebody's comparing Vivek Ramaswamy to Beavis and Butthead.
So Biden Harris HQ, it says some Twitter account, they posted the clip of DeSantis saying Donald Trump owes it to you to defend his record, where they added 7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation we have now. Joe Biden retweeted it and said, couldn't agree more. And then the DeSantis war room said, surprised you're up this late. You made it worse with the $1 trillion with the $1 trillion slush funds.
Oh my gosh.
Retweeting that. I'm surprised you're up this late. It's true. He is up late.
Oh my god! Somebody's trying to give DeSantis crap on Twitter because he was getting makeup put on him. I'll pull up a lot of these.
Oh yeah, that happened. That happened last debate too. Like, oh, he's getting makeup. It's like, yeah, do you not know how television works?
Yeah, that's like, if I could afford a makeup artist, I would. People always tell me how red I look.
Like if I go to if I'm on stage lights flash you out. You have to wear makeup.
Yep, we're coming back.
Last half hour here. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Republican primary debate here at the Reagan Library. We've got a lot more issues to cover and a lot more questions to go. So let's dive right back in. We're here in California, where gas is nearing $6 a gallon. Oil is close to $100 a barrel again. You say, drill, baby, drill. But the courts won't let you. Mr. Ramaswamy, how would you bring down prices without immediate drilling?
Well, look, I think that we do have to run through the courts and get through that administrative state to make sure we're using the natural resources here at home. But here's the other thing that we can do that's easy.
Forever, Mr. Ramaswamy.
And it addresses the national debt as well as brings down prices. Put people back to work. We are using taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home than to go to work. That is wrong. That contributes to our supply chain crisis. It contributes to inflation. That's the easiest way to unlock this economy. And here's the other thing. We have to put the Federal Reserve back in its place. This is an agency that has gone rogue. So in January 2026, when I have the opportunity as our next commander-in-chief, we will have a new chairman of the Federal Reserve who places priority on dollar stability. And then most importantly, send packing 75% of the administrative state, reduce the federal employee headcount by 75%, rescind 50% of unconstitutional federal regulations that are shackling businesses, both large and small. I've offered a very clear, practical plan to do it. That's how we unleash the economy. That's how we revive the integrity of a three-branch constitutional republic, rather than this technocracy and aristocracy in the administrative state.
Response, please.
I think one of the signature accomplishments of our administration was in just a few short years, we achieved energy independence. We became a net exporter of energy for the first time in 75 years. But on day one, Joe Biden declared a war on energy, which was no surprise because when Joe Biden ran for president, he said he was going to end fossil fuels. And they've been working overtime to do that ever since. If I'm president of the United States, we're going to open up federal lands. We're going to unleash American energy. We're going to have an all of the above energy strategy. And I have a plan that actually would not only reclaim energy independence, but in 2006, America lost our position as the leading energy producer on earth. I believe in the next 10 years, with the right policies and experienced leadership in the White House, we can reclaim our role as the leading energy producer on earth, and that'll grow the American economy for generations to come.
Governor Haley, reaction to that,
As the
please.
only person who's leading an energy state, could I answer the energy question?
No, Governor Haley.
So, the first thing I'll say is what I saw at the United Nations is energy security is national security. We need a president that understands we have to partner with our producers and make sure that we have their backs. What you don't need is a president who is against energy independence. Ron DeSantis is against fracking. He's against drilling. He's been against, you did it. He always talks about what happens on day one. You better watch out, because what happens on day two is when you're in trouble. Day two in Florida, you banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you did it on federal lands, and you took green subsidies that you didn't have to take.
Governor DeSantis, you were mentioned. You have the right to respond. 30 seconds.
Yeah. I just did a plan out in West Texas for American energy dominance. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we're going to choose Bakken over Beijing, and we are going to lower your gas prices. We are going to get that job done because it's important for our national security. It's important for jobs, and that's one of the best ways to drive down inflation.
Governor DeSantis, Governor DeSantis,
Governor
DeSantis, this question is for you.
Our voters enacted a constitutional
amendment. You banned it before they voted.
No, it's not true.
You banned it before they voted, and not only that, they didn't vote on fracking.
Totally wrong. They voted it in. That's what we did. Onshore, we do it in Florida. We don't have as much as maybe West Texas, but we do it. But that was a constitutional. So that's just wrong. And let's just get real here. My plan will get the job done. We are going to be energy dominant, and that's what's going to happen.
And the voters didn't even vote on fracking. You banned
We
fracking.
are moving on with this question for Governor DeSantis. Governor, excuse me, we cannot talk over each other. We must respect each other's time. My apologies for that.
I'm ready, Stuart.
Governor DeSantis, this is your question. The Biden administration is hell-bent on student loan forgiveness, but you say colleges should be on the hook when graduates cannot pay their debt. How does that address the cost of college? The cost of college itself?
Because the colleges are going to have to make a decision. Do we expand the gender studies department, knowing some of those graduates may not have great learning opportunities? No, they're going to focus on the things that really matter. They're going to make different choices. They're going to try to graduate people in 4 years. I also just want to come back to something Dana asked last segment about 9/11, because I was just at the 9/11 memorial with the families. My wife and I were invited. It's very touching to be there, and it affected my life because I ended up joining the military as a result of that. I've been a blue-collar kid, minimum wage in Dunedin, Florida. I ended up getting through Yale and Harvard Law School and somehow came out more conservative than when I went in, and that is not easy to do. Had a lot of opportunities to make money, but I wanted to serve, and I'll never forget coming back on the plane from Iraq, landing in Coronado, California, North Island, and feeling that breeze off the Pacific Ocean and say, you know what? I am lucky to have been born an American, and I think being able to serve, and I'll be the first president elected since 1988 who's actually served overseas in a war. I think that's going to help me as commander-in-chief to know how you see these issues and understand that there are real lives at stake for people that wear the uniform.
And we know that Governor Haley's husband is serving right now as well, and we thank him for that. Senator Scott, the national debt has nearly doubled in your time in office. The approval rate for Congress is at a mere
What was that
19%.
right there?
If this were a business, You
A call out for
fired
Haley
Washington,
right there.
but you're
Like,
here tonight looking for a promotion. In
looks fucking
2013, Governor Haley hired
live in
you for the
Washington.
Senate. I'd like you to tell her why you should be promoted to CEO of the nation instead of her.
Certainly. One of the things I'd say is if you look at our national debt of $33 trillion, I would love to have an opportunity to have this country pass a balanced budget amendment. That would constrain the spending in Washington in the same fashion that it does in every state in our nation, number one. Number two, if you want to actually reduce our national debt, you have to grow our economy. In order to grow our economy, you need to create about 10 million jobs to grow our economy at 5%. You can do that in three specific sectors. Number one, the energy sector. We could create between 3 and 3.5 million jobs if we unleashed all of our energy resources. America is we're the richest country if you combine coal, gas, and oil. Why not unleash all of our resources? Number two, we've lost 100,000 factories. 100,000 factories in the last 25 years. If we continued on my Made in America plan, we could bring jobs back to America in a similar fashion that we did when I wrote the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We actually lowered the corporate tax from 35% to 21%, reshored or repatriated $1.7 trillion. We brought the unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians to the lowest level in the history of the country, and a 70-year low for women.
Governor Haley, would you think you would deserve the
first of
promotion
all,
over
I think,
him?
look, I appreciate Tim. We've known each other a long time, but he's been there 12 years and he hasn't done any of that. He hasn't. They've only given 4 budgets on time in 40 years. He was part of that. He increased the national debt. He voted for the spending.
You voted
he has
for,
made
you,
sure that the
you
borders
actually
are open and
asked
they
for a
haven't done
gas
anything.
tax
Look at
increase
everything
in
that's
South
happened.
Carolina.
12 years. Where have you been? Where
I
have
voted
you
no
been,
on all.
Tim?
I voted on
12
most of
years.
those things.
We've
I have
waited
voted
and
most.
nothing has happened.
Here's what you've
12
done.
years.
Here's the thing that I just find interesting.
Ron, let me finish
All
the
these guys have said
Here's the
things,
fact.
and I appreciate a lot of the things they're saying.
Nikki
I'm
Haley.
the only one up here who's gotten in the big fights and has delivered big victories for the people of Florida. And that's what
big
it's all
fights, big
about.
victories.
You can always talk,
Good
but when
t-shirt.
it gets hot in there, when they're
Big
shooting
league.
arrows at you, are you going to be stand up for parents' rights, keep the state free? Are you going to be able to do all those things? And in the state of Florida, because of our success, the Democratic Party lies in ruins. We have won the big fights. We have turned our state into a Republican state. People respond to leadership. I've done it while others have talked
How about
about
the
it.
CEO? We actually have a CEO in the White House, which is what I think we need. If I may just briefly interject here, we need a zero-based budgeting. That's the way businesses are actually run. Start with zero as the baseline for the budget, and then see what's actually necessary. There isn't a blue state or a red state in this union that does it. The federal government doesn't do it. But successful companies, including the ones that I've built as a CEO, will do it. And I think we need a CEO in the White House to get that done.
Governor Burgum runs a state that way.
Yeah,
Yes,
tech
go ahead.
questions, you didn't ask the only guy that's been in tech. You have energy questions, you don't ask anything. But I'm just going to say right now, when you say nobody else has done it, the energy plans that have all been announced in the last month by these other folks on stage, we're already doing it in North Dakota. The border plans they're already talking about, we've got troops down at the border flying helicopter missions from North Dakota, from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop transnational criminal organizations from inflicting the invasion and the mass casualties in our state. And on the energy policy, we're already doing it. It's not saying when nobody else done the big fights, North Dakota was leading the charge. We won the battle to get the Biden administration, who was ignoring the law. They were the first administration since Truman that wasn't holding the quarterly required lease sales, and we won that in federal court. WOTUS, we won that in federal court. We're fighting the Biden administration on 20 fronts. To say that nobody's fighting the big fights, just look at the record of what we're doing right now. Energy, economy, national security, have been talking about it since day one, and now finally, good, we're having the conversation about it, but we've got the answer in North Dakota.
Governor Burgum, let's talk big government. This question's for you. Big government keeps getting bigger. 1/5 of all new jobs this year have been created by the government. Governor Burgum, you say you want to shrink the size of government, but it has been a century since any president has done that. Why would you be any different?
Well, because we've done it in North Dakota. When I took office, we shrunk the state budget general fund by 27% in the first 4 months I was office, and all the trains still running on time. Why? Because you had a business leader that was actually there. Inside of every government job, there's 10 or 20% of mind-numbing, soul-sucking work that even the state and federal employees don't want to do, and you can engineer that work out of the job. That would free up right there 20% of 2 million civilian employees. And by the way, we've got 10 million jobs open. They'd have plenty to do, and they could be generating taxes instead of being paid by taxes. This is totally possible to do it if you have somebody that understands, because having worked in technology for 30 years, everything we had to do was to be better, faster, and cheaper the next day. That's what we can do in government. That's what we're doing in North Dakota.
All right. Governor DeSantis, I want to ask you about something that I think is on a lot of Republicans' minds. This election could come down to less than 50,000 votes in 3 states. Abortion was on the ballot in 6 states in 2022. Republicans lost all of them. Next year, abortion will likely be on the ballot in Arizona. That is a must-win state. Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent, pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state, over 1.5 million votes. We were winning places like Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach, that nobody thought was possible because we were leading with purpose and conviction. I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing.
There it is.
I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time. My wife and I earlier today were at the gravesite of President and Mrs. Reagan, and I noticed that there was a quote where it says, every single person has purpose and worth. We're better off when everybody counts. And I think we should stand for what we believe in. I think we should hold the Democrats accountable for their extremism, supporting abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is infanticide, and that is wrong.
Let me ask Governor Christie. Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans...
Yes, I will.
Okay, Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans can do that in Arizona if this referendum is on the ballot there?
Yeah, because I did it in New Jersey, Dana. You know, it's...
Then why are all these other states losing?
Well, because they don't have leaders in those states who are leading the fight the way it should be led. And the fact is, look, I was a governor here of the only blue state that's represented up here. This is where the fight is really tough for Republicans. And those are the states that we're going to have to try to win if we're going to win the White House back. And what we did is 14 times, Dana, in 8 years, I vetoed Planned Parenthood funding. 14 times. No one else gets it that much. The Democrats just kept sending it to me, and I kept saying no because I believe in life, but I also believe in states' rights. And I think we fought hard against Roe versus Wade for decades to say that states should make these decisions. So we're going to have those fights in the states. But what you need is a leader who can talk to people and make them understand that if you're pro-life, you have to be pro-life for the entire life, not just the 9 months in the womb. And we talked a lot about fentanyl tonight, and we haven't spoken one moment about treatment. But we need to make sure that
that's not true. They talked about mental health
before the county lockup. Her life is precious too. And we need to be providing treatment to cure this as a disease that it is. If you're pro-life, you got to be pro-life for the entire life. We start talking like that, they're going to do what I did in the blue state, which was get reelected with 61% of the vote and won 70% of independents and 51% of Latinos because I told them the truth from my heart.
Thank you. Vice President Pence, the latest Univision poll found that 73% of Latino voters think the Republican Party doesn't care about or is being hostile toward them, the Hispanic community. Only Governor DeSantis has translated his campaign into Spanish. How will you reach out to Latino voters?
It's actually interesting.
Well, I promise you that we're going to continue to build bridges to every community in this country. And I'm incredibly proud of that tax cut and tax reform bill. I worked on Capitol Hill to help get that bill passed into law, the largest tax cut in American history. We saw literally the lowest unemployment ever recorded for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, 50-year low for women. So I think the President of the United States needs to be a champion for the American dream for every American. It begins with the unborn and the aged and the infirm. And it begins with every ethnic group in this country. And I promise you, if I'm President of the United States, I'll be a champion. I'll be a champion for the American dream, for Hispanic Americans and for every American. So help me God.
Senator Scott, reaction?
Yes, there's no doubt that If you lead by example, it's the best way to get the job done. If you look at my office in the Senate, my chief of staff is the only Hispanic female chief of staff in the Senate. I hired her because she was the best, highest qualified person we have. What we need are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done. Nikki offered a 10-cent gas tax increase in South Carolina. Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina. As the UN ambassador, you literally put $50,000 on curtains in a $15 million subsidized location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
and
YouTube
you want to know what
yourself.
that 10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will
Here's
pass
what you have
it
to
if
do.
you will
All
give us three.
All you have to do is go watch Nikki Haley on YouTube.
Yes. If you will give me 3 times the deduction in income tax, then I will look at your gas tax,
said
which
yes,
is why it
you
didn't
would
happen.
pass. Exactly, Ron.
Secondly, on the 50 million.
Here is a nice part.
Secondly, on the curtains, do your
Yes.
homework, Tim, because Obama bought those curtains.
Did you send them back?
It's in the press.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh.
You get it
You
done.
hung them on your curtains.
They were there before I even showed up at the residence. You are scrapping. You are scrapping.
I'm not scrapping.
You know
Here's the fact. Here's the fact, though.
I cut taxes. I loaded up our
You wanted a gas tax increase, and then you wanted
Ladies and gentlemen, we do not intend to go ahead like this. In fact, we're about to take a commercial break. We'll have more of the second Republican debate live from the Reagan Presidential Library in just a few moments.
Man.
Wow.
Okay, so that was interesting. Reminder to everybody, after the debate for 30 minutes to an hour, we are going to have a brief panel discussion, a little bit about what we heard within the debate. Do not forget that link should be in your comment section. You can follow that now, and you will not be brought immediately onto. You'll be brought into like a waiting room, and you can join that when you'd like, and you can share your thoughts on this presidential debate through the panel. I'd love for you guys to do that. I know we already have at least one person in the panel so far. Hopefully it gets pretty spicy. We'd love to know what you guys think. Man, that last segment, it has descended. Much of this debate has descended into screaming matches that even the moderators cannot control.
Yeah. Well, and did you notice what Andy just sent about
I
Nikki?
didn't see it.
So Nikki was saying about Florida Amendment 9 that banned offshore drilling.
Yep.
It was on the ballot in Florida,
And it
the
didn't
commission
pass.
on November 6, 2018. It was approved. That's the same election that DeSantis was first elected in.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, from what I saw, according to my research, which was a few different sources, DeSantis did initially act to stop fracking, but other efforts to ban the method statewide have not passed in the legislature. So it seemed like he had, at least from everything I saw, it seemed like he was not necessarily super for it, but due to the legislature and public opinion, it would seem as though he did not. It never passed. So,
yeah, I mean, and I think when they talk about offshore too, it's like the big thing is, I know one of his concerns. I think I heard talk about this before, where he said offshore. He's like, well, if it's in like a place that's tourist, then yeah, we don't want to see that. Like that ruins tourism.
Yeah,
as well.
Well, there's that, and as well as like there's just a genuine lack of comfort for it when you have things like the BP explosion back in like I forgot exactly when that happened, but
or Deepwater Horizon.
Yeah, that whole thing. Which like I don't know I don't know that much about drilling and offshore drilling, but I think that would constitute offshore drilling because it is off the shore. And so when there's just a genuine level or a general level of uncomfort with the idea of offshore drilling, period. It's just like people. So like, well, Well, I think we need to, like I think Vivek said, like we need to take advantage of our natural resources and become an energy independent again. I can understand a skepticism considering that being like a major disaster, man-made disaster.
Yeah. Well, and with that too, I just saw too the same person who tweeted about the amendment tweeted something that Trump extended a drilling moratorium in Florida with offshore drilling. Like he.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's like.
Did not know that.
Yeah, I mean they're just.
Yeah, it's not always hyper climate extremism, you know.
Exactly.
So, let's see. Kevin Sorbo, Tax Network USA. That's who they're advertising right now. I'm so mad about Facebook. People.
That is
really
crazy.
wanting that. I know, and I don't get taken out anywhere else. It's only on Facebook.
Yeah, that's weird.
The message is getting to too many people. They don't like it. They don't like hearing. One, it's just like
it's the Bidens.
It's Biden. It's all Biden's fault. Thanks, Biden.
Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, I'm just looking through Twitter, seeing what people are talking about, seeing what
I mean, I'm seeing a lot of people just saying
important. I'll find I'll notice things that other people won't sometimes, and then something will get viral that I didn't even realize happened. The Donald Duck one definitely makes sense. That'll be
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're coming back.
All right, last little bit here.
And welcome back to the final minutes. I could go another hour, but we only have a few minutes. And candidates, it's now obvious that if you all stay in the race, former President Donald Trump wins the nomination. None of you have indicated that you're dropping out. So, which one of you on stage tonight should be voted off the island?
That's kind of a funny question.
Your marker to write your choice on the notepad in front of you. 15 seconds starting now. Of the people on the stage, who should be voting? Absolutely serious.
With all due respect, I mean, we're here, we're happy to debate, but I think that's disrespectful to my fellow competitors.
Nobody wants to participate.
Let's do some questions. Let's talk about the future of the country.
Good, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be clear.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you something. Then if you won't answer that question, let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
What is your mathematical path,
Yes.
Governor DeSantis, in order to try to beat President Trump, who has a commanding and enduring lead in this race?
So polls don't elect presidents. Voters elect presidents.
Right.
And we're going to take the case of the people in these early states. We're going to do it in a state-by-state direction. And why? Because as Reagan said in his day, this is our time for choosing. We are not getting a mulligan on the 2024 election. Republicans have lost 3 straight elections in a row. We were supposed to have a red wave with inflation at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've got to choose right. We've got to win. And we need somebody that's going to be able to serve 2 terms. So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around, we secured the border, and we fended off the threat from communist China. As your president, I will get that job done.
Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something. Governor Christie, I believe, excuse me, Governor Christie, I believe I did see you write something on the card. Who was it?
No, but I'll certainly tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I think I've been the only one on the stage who's been clear about this. I vote Donald Trump off the island right now. And the reason I vote him off the island,
any of the people on the stage,
you know what? Every person on this stage has shown the respect for Republican voters to come here to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly, and to take your questions honestly. I have respect for every man and woman on this stage because they've done it. Vivek, put your hand down for a second, would you?
I have respect for everyone,
dude. So chill out. Here, look. This guy has not only divided our party, he's divided families all over this country. He's divided friends all over this country. I've spoken to people, and I know everyone else has, who have sat at Thanksgiving dinner or at a birthday party and can't have a conversation conversation anymore if they disagree with Donald Trump. He needs to be voted off the island, and he needs to be taken out of this process.
Can we get Vivek 15 seconds?
All right, you have 15 seconds, Vivek.
Look, I have a different view on this. I think Trump was an excellent president, but the America First agenda does not belong to one man. It does not belong to Donald Trump. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the people of this country. And the question is, who's going to unite this country and take the America First agenda to the next level? When we rallied behind the cry to make America great again, we did not just hunger for a single man. We hungered for the unapologetic pursuit of excellence. So yes, I will respect Donald Trump and his legacy because it's the right thing to do. But we will unite this country to take the America First agenda to the next level, and that will take a different generation to do it.
That does it. I repeat, that does it for the second Republican primary debate live from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library.
Thank you to all the candidates. We've loved having you here tonight, and we will see you out on the campaign trail.
Have a great evening. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Good night. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Yes, everybody. Okay, so we're still staying here. We got some things to talk about, and I have at least one man in my panel. Anybody is welcome to join. The comment in or the link to join the panel is within the comment section. I'm more than happy to allow anybody a chance to share their opinion. I'm switching my cameras over real quick since I'm standing now. There we go. So anybody is more than welcome to join the panel. I'd love to have some good debate, some conversation about what we thought about this debate. I want to point out before we get into everything, I just thought it was hilarious how right after Chris Christie says, "I respect everyone on this stage," he goes, "Put your hand down, Vivek."
Well, you know that I do think he was trying to make a joke because I think Vivek was like, "What?" And he's like, "Come on, put your hand down. Let me speak." You know, I actually did like that little last moment there of them all being like, "No, that's not. We're not going to do that." And kind of the solid, there's definitely more of a solidarity this moment. I think they're realizing that if they want to beat Trump, they got to work together. They cannot beat each other's throats.
Absolutely. Well, any other, I thought in that last segment, Josh and I will wrap up ours and then I'll bring in some other people. I noticed DeSantis cut right in after they asked that question. I was very interested to see who they would say for that question or for that and to answer that question about who should get voted off the island. Chris Christie said exactly what I would almost exactly what I would have expected him to say. DeSantis cuts right in and gives a very heartfelt response regarding just saying like that's toxic, it's inappropriate, it's disrespectful, as well as just we need to be focusing on other issues. What did you think of that, Josh?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I like that there's definitely more of a solidarity moment here. And I'm seeing some of these people who, while they might have their disagreements and their fights from time to time, overall, they seem to be in that mindset of we got to win. And if we're all fighting each other, A, we distract from Trump, but B, we distract from Biden. So they basically, I mean, I would argue they're running against all these guys together. But I do think there's more solidarity building. And one thing I noted, Vivek is finally saying why he is the guy over Trump. He finally answered that question of the separation of America First doesn't belong to one man. MAGA doesn't belong to one man. It belongs to all of us. We need a new generation. I'm that. I actually like that answer a lot.
I thought that one was pretty good as well. Okay, to bring somebody else into the mix, let's hope he's there. I know he is at work right now. My good buddy Mitch. How's it going, Mitch? Are you there?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Mitch, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. As you know, I've only watched the little segment that you guys were doing for the last 15, 20 minutes there. So I don't know quite as much as what happened in there, but I really enjoyed seeing a little bit of the catfighting that was going on between, Haley and Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't see those two as actual candidates, if I'm going to be honest, because as you know, Haley has said some things that I do not really agree with. And
like what?
Especially the Israel first thing. Like with what she said in the first debate, Israel doesn't need us, we need Israel, where I think that America doesn't need any other country to be successful. And I think that we need to focus on home problems over international problems. And I think that that goes even further into the war in Ukraine. We need to stay away from other people's problems, focus on our own, and then we can deal with what happens afterwards.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Mitch, I'm going to bring another buddy on here, and I'm going to keep you in so we can have kind of a free-flowing conversation here. And I'm going to mute you in a second just because you have all your equipment going on around you.
Yeah, I got a little job to do, so carry on.
All good. But I want to ask you real quick before we bring somebody else on as well. If the election were held today, who would you vote for president?
I think as of today, I would still go with DeSantis because Vivek does have a lot of good points, and I think that he means well, but I don't know that he actually has the ability to follow through with his promises, whereas DeSantis has a proven track record that he knows how to win and knows how to lead.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for that. Like I said, I'm going to mute you. If you have anything to say, you can unmute yourself. Up next, we got Alex in here. Alex, how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing great, man. So what do you think overall ideas on what was going on in the debate?
I think Vivek held his own. I mean, there were a lot of their, like, towards the beginning, towards the middle, he got in that cat fight pretty well where they're bantering back and forth. There was a lot of them running over the time, which is what we saw a lot of in the 2020 election, where you had Trump going through and kicking, just going past the moderator. There was almost everybody went past the moderator, and it was nitty gritty. DeSantis had some key points, but I think he got talked over a lot by Nikki Haley and Vivek a little bit. He had some good points when he had to step in, but like I said, Vivek finally made some distinctions. But yeah.
Absolutely. And like I asked Mitch, if the election were held today, who would you be voting for and why?
After this one, I think it's more muddled up than the last one. Last one was DeSantis. I'm still going with DeSantis because his points are still the same. It did get my mind ticking a little bit when they were talking about the healthcare and that debt when he was going at it with Mike Pence, which he also had some really good points. But I mean, DeSantis hasn't changed on his opinions, and we saw that from the moderators quite a bit too, where they were, I think it was with Vivek, and then also with Mike Pence when they were asking them those certain questions, and then also with Chris Christie, and they especially about the immigration one where he switched. I was on the phone with my grandma, in fact, like right after that, and I told her that, and I said, "Hey, he literally said he wanted to package them up and track them like FedEx packages," and she was like, "Wow,
yep,
that's like huge." Because if that's how we're gonna see immigration going into 2024, that's like he's not gonna get any support for that. Because you have to shut down the border, but you still have to treat them like human beings. Like that didn't sit well with me at all.
No, absolutely. And going off of the idea of immigration, one person who had an opportunity to speak on immigration was Vivek, in which he took a stance that was, he took a stance about ending birthright citizenship for children that are born on American soil but are children of illegal immigrants. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because obviously within our Constitution there is there's I forgot what amendment it is or 14th Amendment. Oh yeah, he read it on stage. I forgot. But within the 14th Amendment, it says that you are allowed to, if you are born on United States soil, then you are an American citizen. And so very, very interesting that he would take that stance. I think he's made it known a little bit in media interviews before, never on such a public stage. Where do you guys lie on that? Because obviously many conservatives are constitutionalists and thus believe that the way the Constitution was written was obviously within purpose. 14th was added after the initial constitutional convention. It was added during the Civil Rights Amendments after when slavery was abolished.
1868.
That's it. You're a history teacher. So what do you guys think about ending birthright citizenship?
I'm actually teaching it this week, which is kind of interesting.
Okay, nerd.
I'm teaching this tomorrow, so and Friday. But I think it's interesting because I think Scott had a good point. And what Scott was saying was that, listen, this was meant for slaves. This was meant to say that, hey, if you were enslaved and you were brought here as, enslaved, you are now a citizen. He's 100% right on that. Obviously, this wasn't meant to be used for illegal immigrants. I 100% agree. But I also think Scott was more right in this, and then saying the only way that we can look at this is it's gonna have to go to the Supreme Court, because even if Vivek can get a law passed, if it was President Ramaswamy and he got a law passed, it's going to be challenged. It's going to go to the court, and the court would have to interpret it. Based on the court we have now, I don't think they would actually side with him. I think, as a constitutionalist, and that's what I consider myself, it would be a really tough decision because it is written as. I get what they're saying with the, under the jurisdiction of the law, but if you are in the United States, even as a foreigner, you are under our jurisdiction of law. I mean, by technicality. If I go to England and I break a law in England, I'm under their jurisdiction, even as an American citizen.
Got it. So from what it sounds like, you believe that within the Constitution already, birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants is not protected, and in a court case must prove that.
No, I believe under the 14th Amendment, it actually is protected.
Oh, you do, but do you believe it should be? That was my question, not whether or not you think it is. It's
so that's where it gets confusing, and that's where it gets complicated. Honestly, I wish I had a better answer. That's an issue that's still fairly new to me, so I got to look into it more.
I'd say it goes off of that First Amendment too, because I mean, everybody with the founding fathers and everything, this is just me pulling it out of thin air. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I mean, that's the biggest claim that people are using for these illegal immigrants to come here, is like, oh, they're the American dream, everything. We saw that Vivek and Tim Scott, and then they were poking at that the American dream. I think that somebody has to stand firm on it. I think that the Supreme Court would grant a temporary injunction to see it, but ultimately, I mean, it could even turn into like another amendment where they'd have to amend something to clarify it. So
interesting. Mitch, I don't know if you're listening, but what do you think about illegal immigrants being born on American soil? Do you think they should automatically have citizenship? Unmute yourself if you're listening.
So it's kind of a tough topic for me to wrap my head around, because I believe that it's protected by the 14th Amendment like Josh does, but at the same time, I think it is wholly irresponsible and immoral for a pregnant woman to make a dangerous crossing like that just to give their child citizenship. And this is probably a lot of what causes separation separation between illegal immigrant families and natural born children, because, well, what are we going to do now? We should be sending their parents back, but we can't send them back. So it's a real complicated issue that I think needs some legislation to clear up, even though I dislike legislation on anything. But I think that in the grand scheme of things, birthright citizenship shouldn't be ended, because it's a really founding principle of civil rights, especially since you can say civil rights was, started around the time that the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendments, or was it 12th? I can't remember. Anyway, I'll stop rambling.
No, all good, bud. I appreciate your thoughts. Again, we're trying to understand what just the average person thinks. If you're watching right now, the link is in the comments for you to join the discussion. There's a few other things I want to ask about. If you're curious about my opinion on birthright citizenship, it's one that I'm also a little mixed on, because while I agree with Mitch that it's wholly irresponsible, and I also agree with the assertion, it's honestly just kind of a legally true assertion, that the 14th Amendment covers birthright citizenship. I could also see a world and a pathway to where you must have at least one parent that is an American citizen to have American citizenship, and birthright citizenship being taken away. And I don't think I would be against that. I'd want to see the legislation. I'd kind of want to see how it works, and see how it gets phased in. But I'm open to it. I just find it interesting, and definitely one of the more, and when I say radical, I don't necessarily mean bad, but radical policy ideas that was brought up on stage tonight. Radical more so just meaning out there. There was a few other things. One being energy. Energy was brought up. Josh and I talked a little bit about the idea of Nikki Haley basically kind of lying about Florida. When it comes to the idea of climate change and how we're getting our energy, what were you guys' thoughts on how the moderators handled that? How do you think that the people answered, or the candidates answered that? And just general thoughts on the debate around American energy.
I mean, I thought the moderators sucked. I thought they were all bad. I mean,
I'd agree with that.
I mean, we had a Brit, first of all. Sorry about part of language. Why the fuck do we have a Brit? I don't care about what the Brits say. Like, we left the Brits for a reason. So I don't know why we have a Brit on stage, and that was honestly my biggest problem. If there was a Frenchman, I would have been even more upset. But I digress. I think they answered the question well. I mean, I think the idea of American energy is fantastic. Obviously, we have to focus on American energy. I mean, I even said today, I was like to my kids, "Hey guys, what's up?" And they're like, "Gas prices." And I go, "Yep, that's a great answer because it's true." I mean, we're begging the Saudis for oil. Why are we begging the Saudis for oil? We have so much oil here. When it comes to just energy in general, talking about fracking, yeah, I mean, Nikki Haley straight up lied about Ron DeSantis. I mean, verifiably lied. There's now threads on Twitter calling her out, being like, "How did you not research this enough?" It took a 2-minute Wikipedia search to find this out. But and Trump extended a moratorium against fracking off source. I think I didn't hear any of them mention nuclear really, which was kind of interesting because that tends to be one of those that tends to be a discussion when we get to energy and clean energy and climate change. Someone always brings up nuclear. I think Vivek did it last time, and that wasn't brought up. It was mostly oil. I think because the gas issue is just so big. I mean, because here in Nevada, I just saw gas yesterday. I think it was $5.
Yeah,
and I'm like, geez. I mean, like, I'm on a teacher salary. I can't afford that.
Alex?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I was confused by what Nikki Haley was even saying there because I mean, I've seen videos and everything, and I know that he is very pro energy and everything. I mean, the only way for gas prices to really go down is to be self-sufficient, like Mike Pence was saying. We need to be self-sufficient. It's the only way we can compete with China.
This is where I get it down to it, is because like energy is an interesting topic, because energy, I feel like oftentimes, and you're not wrong when it comes to gas prices, but it oftentimes gets boiled down significantly to it's about gas prices, and people always just think it's gas to fill my car, but energy, like when we think about it, energy everywhere, all of the energy that we are consuming, all of the computers that are going, if you were able to see my light bright that's in front of me, that I push all my buttons and move my soundboards, there's a TV up there, everything that we are doing right now takes energy that in some way needs to be produced. And that's really, when we're talking about energy, I think it's, and again, I don't fault you by any means, but it always, and even Ron DeSantis did this. A lot of them on stage get it down to gas prices because that's what everybody's complaining about right now, and that's what's easily palatable to understand. And that's why I think, Josh, to answer what you said a little bit, why nuclear might not have been brought up is because that gets into a conversation that your average American will not understand.
That's fair.
And so when I ask questions about energy, even I don't understand everything about it, but I think oftentimes we get a very, very narrow view, and the reason why it's asked is because of the climate crisis extremists that push this idea that well, we need to have clean energy, otherwise everyone's going to die. Because again, that message is also easily, I don't want to say palatable, but easily understood by the American people. Is everyone's going to die, unless we all drive electric vehicles. And then speaking of electric vehicles, somebody that understands them a little bit, Mitch, what do you think about energy?
All right, so energy is a real big thing that I like to keep up on. I really wish that they would touch on nuclear energy more because it's the cleanest, most efficient form of energy that we have access to right now, because wind farms are not that good at production, and they kill migratory birds, they disrupt insects that are trying to pollinate. They are bad for the environment. Solar farms, you have to clear out entire acres of land just to have any good energy generation. And this whole stigma with nuclear energy is that, oh, it's so dangerous. The waste is solid waste. It's not a sludge, and it's easy to dispose of. But specifically about the natural gas, oil, and coal, we need to be self-sufficient on that immediately, because I look at my energy bill and I'm paying $250 every month just on my electricity, which is outrageous. At my old places like years ago, I was never paying that much, even during the pandemic when everybody was, inside, so you had to use your AC all the time. You had to use electronics all the time. So we really need somebody in there who's going to put America's natural resources at the forefront of their, priorities, so that way we can extract our resources while also not destroying our beautiful country. Like, we need to have our gas production in Alaska. We need to frack a little bit more, but definitely not in tourist places like, Florida, which I don't see why voting against fracking when your main income is from tourism is a bad thing. So I just wish that we could put the global warming on the back burner and just focus on making life livable for the American.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And so for anybody that doesn't know, I'm not going to dox him or anything, but Mitch works in the electric vehicle industry. So obviously energy is something that he knows probably a little bit more about than the average American. But I think he makes a great point with all of that, and he obviously understands it a lot better than a lot of us do. Another topic that was brought up in that second hour, which we were kind of waiting for, was abortion towards Governor Ron DeSantis. DeSantis obviously had attacked Trump a little bit and went after him, considering Trump called the abortion ban in Florida to be terrible. He said that on Face the Nation just a little over a week ago. And DeSantis went after him for that, and also gave an answer that was very much like, because they asked, how are you going to win over independents when you have a heartbeat bill? The statistical truth is that the majority of Americans do not or do support some level of restriction on abortion. The question for Americans is, when would that be? Trump threw around the number of 15 weeks in his interview. It really kind of depends. What do we think about the answer he gave? Where are you guys at when it comes to abortion in America, DeSantis's answer, and the comparison to Trump in his interview?
I mean, I think it's great that DeSantis has taken off the gloves and calling out Trump where he should. Even just today, actually, I just saw this not long ago. DeSantis War Room tweeted it. Trump accused pro-life advocates of grifting and just basically trying to raise money. Just taking all this money. And
I think you might have gotten muted there, Josh.
Yeah, my AirPods died.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like he's saying, like, they're just grifters and they're trying to raise all this money. It's like, dude, if you're gonna run as a pro-life president, and he does, you got to stop attacking the pro-lifers, and you got to stop attacking these pro-life people. I mean, that's just absurd. I think DeSantis' answer was great because he didn't really focus on the issue. He focused more on, this is why Trump is wrong. It's just I want to respond to Guillotine. How did DeSantis go after someone who wasn't there? I don't know. Why wasn't he there? He's a coward. And I've said that before. Trump's a coward.
And Guillotine, if you are interested in joining the stream, earlier in the chat, I did post the link. You're more than welcome to join the panel. I'd love for it, to have a little bit of conversation and discussion. But in terms of the question regarding abortion and Trump's answer to abortion. Trump and DeSantis' answers to abortion, and where this nation should go in terms of that. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Straight up, I think it comes down to that interview that Trump had a week ago, where he was like hinting at that 6-week mark, and DeSantis was loud then, and he still stands on that point now from the moment of conception. I know there's a lot of like controversy around it and a lot of religious, political views, especially with Roe v. Wade being sent back to the states. Each state sees it for themselves. It's exactly how DeSantis put it. From the time it happens, there needs to be protection on it, and there's no room to wiggle there. It needs to be set in stone. So,
absolutely, Mitch. Any thoughts on this?
So I'm a little in the weeds on it. So I kind of flip back and forth between whether I'm for, certain restrictions on abortion or if I want it outlawed completely. At this point, I don't think that I saw the DeSantis response to this, so I can't really comment on that. But I just think that it definitely is a state's issue, and the federal government should just wash their hands of it. That's pretty much the only opinions on it that I have.
Gotcha. Well, yes, I mean, abortion is a controversial topic, obviously, in America, with the left consistently claiming that Republicans are misogynists that just want to control women's bodies, while anybody who has ever even done an ounce of research into the Republican conservative stance, even on the most ardent pro-lifers, know that is not the case whatsoever for 99.9%. There might be, I always like to give myself a little bit of wiggle room, because there might be that like 0.1%, that one person that's just an absolute scumbag that actually does hold that view. But one thing I want to point out is a lot of the left recently has been pushing this idea that abortion up until birth is propaganda, and it's not true, which is an absolutely crazy thing, because literally like 4 years ago, Governor Ralph Northam, former governor of Virginia, went on a radio show where he discussed the option for women who have had birth to potentially swaddle the child if it has some deformity or it has a mental issue of some kind, like autism or something. Then they could swaddle the child post-birth and consider whether or not they would end and terminate that life. So anybody who is saying, and here's the thing, is while it might be in the statistical minority of third trimester and even considering post-birth abortions, while those might be the statistical anomaly, they are still there, and they still do happen, even if it's 10%. Most abortions do occur in the first trimester, 100%. That is true. However, anybody who is pro-life and anybody who advocates for pro-life causes believes that even one life saved, even if it was only one abortion per year that was in the third trimester, which that's not the way it is. It is more than that. But even if it was only one, they would still believe that's worth it. Josh, you have something to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, first of all, I remember New York passed that law that allowed abortion up to birth, and they cheered. They like lit up the Empire State Building pink.
Yeah,
like it was disgusting. I'm like, that's gross. And even then, and you're right. They've been pushing this propaganda. I think the world's worst press secretary came out and said like, oh, it's propaganda, and it's like it's not. But even then, if it is propaganda, let's say it is, right? Just sake of argument, it's totally fake. We're making up. Why are you pushing so hard against it? Why not say, do you know what? We agree. That's terrible. We should work together we should compromise on this and work together to fix something. But all you say is, but instead they go into defense and go, well, that's propaganda. We never said that. And then when we say, well, do you want to do something about it? Well, no. Why? If that's the case, compromise, work with us. That could be a big win for both of you if you decide to do it. But they just say it's propaganda. When you say work with us, they say no, which to me shows they're completely full of shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to point out Tribal Hack, I appreciate the comment. I think honestly, a lot of times ScrewTube tries to keep me down. I've had more viewers on other things, but I don't care about the viewers. It's about getting the message out there. Even if if I was talking to one person right now, that'd be fine for me, because we gotta have these conversations, and a lot of people in America do not want to. So don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment. Everything like that. And if you want to get it to more people, definitely share the video. I'd really appreciate that. The invitation is still extended to anybody who would like to come on. Earlier, I did post the link. I'll post it one more time if you'd like to join the stream. We're going to probably get out of here within the next 15 to 30 minutes max. But I had at least two more topics I wanted to discuss from the debate that I took note of, and they kind of go hand in hand, but I'll start with the first one. It seems like I've noticed more and more, almost every single candidate for president at some point has discussed shrinking government, but specifically one way that they all discuss shrinking government is doing away with the Department of Education. Whenever the idea of education comes up, it used to be kind of, I don't want to say, no, actually I kind of would, fringe. It used to be kind of fringe. Like it was like only like maybe Vivek and maybe DeSantis and maybe Trump, like only maybe them would talk about getting rid of the Department of Education. I think I even heard Pence talk about it this time. I think Christie talked about it. I'm not 100% sure. But it seems more mainstream to talk about getting rid of the Department of Education. Back in 2016, even maybe 2020, that was still more of a fringe topic. What do you guys think about, one, getting rid of the Department of Education, but two, it becoming more mainstream?
Okay, so as an educator who cares a lot about this issue, here's what I have to say. Get rid of the Department of Education. It is absolutely useless. It does nothing. It actually takes money from me as a teacher, and I know that sounds selfish, but it does. Let's be real here. If all that money that went to the DOE, and I said this, and I don't know who the Secretary of Education is. That's technically kind of my boss.
It used to be Betsy DeVos.
It used to be Betsy DeVos. I don't know who the new guy is. I think he's I think it's an Hispanic dude. I don't know his name. Don't know nothing. I know nothing about him because I don't care, because it's a
diversity hire.
It's a useless organization that needs to go away. All that money should be redistributed to states to fix schools at the state level. The federal Department of Education should be abolished. I'm so happy people are finally talking about it. I've always said if I ran for president or any office, I'd run on day one ending that thing. I hate it with a passion. I don't care who knows it.
Absolutely. Alex, what are your thoughts?
As the son of a teacher, and my dad is on the school board, and my grandma did quite a bit of time on the school board back in California. And hearing all like the politics that goes into it and everything with it, I'm all with Josh on it. Like the Department of Education it's been around for the longest time, and it mostly serves as like the safe haven for the teachers union and for Randy Weingarten. Like it's stupid. And I mean, we just talked about it in state and local government class up here, because I'm finishing up my college degree up here in Idaho, and it's stupid. Like,
yeah.
I mean, they have the Department of Education, but it doesn't. It just funnels money away from smaller schools and smaller public schools. Like, they have to fight for ways around it and like go through grants and everything, and which, I mean, the only thing that stands between the federal government and your public school is your school board. And that's why you get parents so riled up when they try and impose things like critical race theory, because the Department of Education is like, oh, this groundbreaking discovery. It's not a groundbreaking discovery at all. It's something that was already here. You're just reintroducing it. And so, because the way you look at it, Americans are not original. We take ideas and we recycle them. And so, and that's exactly what the Department of Education's done. They look at these things that they do in other countries and these experiments that these sociologists and psychologists do on kids, and they're like, okay, well, let's give them, what was it? Common Core was the biggest one.
Common Core, and then there was Common Core was under Obama, I believe, and then before that it was No Child Left Behind.
Yep.
Which all of which, and so here's the thing is, so I followed education my entire life. I'm also the son of a teacher, and my mom was in education for 36 years, all of my childhood. And so first off, I want to point out, so I just looked up, even according to the Department of Education is relatively new. It was created in 1979. And its primary purpose originally was to collect information and statistics about the nation's schools, which at a base level, I don't necessarily hate on the idea of like, okay, we can understand what are our national literacy levels and what are we proficient in math, but we've strayed away from reading, writing, and arithmetic. And here is the thing: is when it comes to the standards, because when the nation is setting the standards, that's the problem. Is because if we were just saying, okay, and if it was just a data center of taking in, okay, here is all of our literacy levels and everything like that, and here's all that, basically like an educational census, I would have no problem with it. But when they are setting the standards, what happened with No Child Left Behind and Common Core is it created equity. So we always hear this term equity, right? So equity, you'll always hear the left praise it and saying it's going to make everybody better. No, it doesn't. What it does is they always try to say, okay, it brings everybody to the same level. Yes, but it doesn't necessarily bring your bottom kids, your remedial kids to the standard. No, what it does is that it lowers the standard. So then your smart kids do not get the resources and help they need to excel and become better. It brings them down to the level of the dumb kids because it never challenges them and never pushes them to be better. Unless you live in a wealthier area that can push more of its local property tax into the educational system to provide honors and more AP and different resources for those kids to excel. And so because of the Department of Education standards, first off, that's just standards. Because of their standards, it is lowered. You want to talk about why test scores and why we haven't had people excelling for 2 decades in our school systems, by and large, is because of the Department of Education and the crap standards they push on people to become worse. That's the first thing.
Well, I was going to say real quick. I like your point on equity because so I'm currently on a curriculum committee. We don't have curriculum for my department, and we're trying to get some. Cool, whatever. The minute I hear any one of these presenters say equity, I'm immediately going to shoot my hand up and go, "What do you mean by that?" I don't care about equity. I want to hear about equality. How are our students going to be equal? How are you going to challenge our students? How are we not going to make them dumb? Because that's what equity does. I hate equity. I've fought against it for years. My entire 4 years of college, I fought against it. There's professors now at ISU who hate me because I straight up told them I don't care about equity. Talk to me about equality. If you say equity one more time, I'm just not going to respond.
Absolutely. And so that's the first part. And then you get into the unions. And that was my next question. Is it seemed there was a universal stance not only against the Department of Education, but also just against unions, period. And I have been one of the biggest advocates against unions for a long time. I believe they, similar to the idea of equity, protect the worse and do not do anything for the best. One example I always gave is my mom consistently as a teacher got excellence on her performance reviews, as other teachers would get like fair or substantial. I don't know exactly the word they would use, but it would be similar to that. It would be that sentiment of fair or substantial. Like you did enough, you did your job enough, as my mom would go above and beyond. And she would get paid. Anybody who had the same qualifications as her and had been working the same amount of time as her, she would get paid the same as her or as them. And it's because of the union not advocating for performance-based pay. It's because the union, and then there were other teachers that would be basically awful at their job, but because they were tenured and protected by the union from potential discriminatory lawsuits that the union would supply, then those teachers were protected. My mom was never rewarded for her great work. Then you talk about policing. I mean, left always wants to complain about policing. Unions. You want to know who protects the bad cops that actually do bad things? The union. You know who pays their legal bills? The union. Like unions, and the fact that we have people that are not advocating for themselves are leading to the destruction of a positive and quality workforce. One of my firm opinions. Josh, I know you're more of a pro-union advocate. What did you think about a little bit of the union bashing at the debate tonight, as well as my opinion?
Let me clarify. I'm not pro-union. I'm not pro these national unions. I technically am a member of one, but I hate them. I hate them. Yes, I'm a member of my union because my union here at my district basically says F the national one. We don't care. We're focusing on ourselves. They're pretty good. They actually are a fairly conservative union. I know when COVID was a thing, if they vaccine mandates were talked about, they basically said if you impose those, 90% of the staff are walking out, and they fought them. They fought for a huge raise, which was great. I do have to say, you don't quite understand the payment scale for teachers because especially public school, because it is a government job. Performance-based doesn't exist. Now we talk about
That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
Again, I agree. Can we talk about that? Yes, but that's not a thing. So there is just a pay scale that you have to agree that you are on. That's not the unions that do that. That's just government jobs in general. So, can we talk about the idea of merit-based versus or performance-based versus pay scale? Yeah, absolutely. That's government job. That's not the unions doing that. Now, do I love the fact that they're calling out these national unions? They're calling out these big ones, the ones that are going to these meetings and saying we still need to mask up our kids indefinitely and force vaccines in their arms. Yeah, call them out because they're a bunch of dicks. Like, I'll just say it. I don't like them.
Not to mention the fact that unions take part of your paycheck, and if you are, even if you are one of the better teachers, they're taking money out of your paycheck, and what are they really doing for you?
Right. And again, especially these big guys, like I remember like breaking, because that was one big thing when I was looking at joining. They're like, here's what happens. Like, here's how much we take. 90% of it goes to these little guys. And I can say my local union is very good. Very, very good. They actually look out for really, really everyone. They really take care of a lot of issues, and we're fighting a lot of issues I really obviously can't speak about, but we're doing a lot. But it's these big guys that I hate. I'm so glad they're actually calling them out.
Gotcha. Alex, thoughts? I know you mentioned the union a little bit before. Any other thoughts?
No, just that. Like I said, with the pay scale and everything too, and the union, because both my parents are different. They're different political parties. My dad comes from traditionally conservative. They're farmers, so they in the West Coast, so they grew up cattle farmers and everything. And my mama grew up in Virginia, the child of a professor. He taught at University of Virginia, and then he moved to Utah, and he taught at BYU Provo for about 30 years. And she was very sheltered, and she just recently went back and got her degree, and it was like she was constantly fighting to get that higher pay grade, and she just focuses all on that. And I'm pretty sure she's a member of the union. She claims she's not, but she definitely sides with a lot of what they say, and it's very interesting because
to see the dichotomy there.
Yeah, and so I wonder how, like, just how that would, because I mean it's different because I mean she's a teacher in Northern California, whereas I mean Josh, you're in, what did you say, Nevada?
Nevada, yeah.
Okay, and so I mean, and those are two different states. I mean California, even though my area is fairly conservative because it's farmers and walnut, almonds, rice, peaches, prunes, and that's all little farming towns, and California's a blue state, and so you have a massive union that is the one that garnishes probably the most support, other than probably Illinois and New York combined, behind Randy Weingarten. And so, yeah,
I'm in Illinois, and I can tell you, especially our Chicago Public Teachers Union,
CPS,
CPS, basically controls the Illinois public teacher. I think there's a statewide union as well. But it's basically all run by CPS. It's insane. And CPS
that's how it is for LA.
So flippant. It's basically, it's as corrupt as like the Teamsters union back in like Jimmy Hoffa times. It's absolutely insane. Mitch, I know I've had you over there and you've been working and everything, but I hope you've been listening. Is there anything you'd like to add regarding the Department of Education or unions?
Gut the Department of Education, gut three-letter organizations, because they reward complacency, and they're basically just a little retreat spot for people who are like, oh, I need a job. Oh, well, I'll just work at the Department of Education and then I won't have to do anything. Whereas a school teacher actually busts their ass and tries to teach kids what they need to be taught. And then the Department of Education just says, well, you have to teach them a little bit of critical race theory. You have to teach them a little bit of, gender theory. And with unions, that's just another group that rewards complacency. My mom has worked in the school system ever since my sister was born, so that's 25 years, I think. Started as a special ed teacher, moved to librarian, then secretary, and I'm from a small area, and the only thing that I hear about from her is about all of these kids that I know who they are. They don't know how to read half the time. They don't know how to do basic math. They don't know how to critically think about anything in their life. But damn, do they know that, oh, I want to get my boobs cut off because I'm actually a guy, or, oh, everything is racist. That's the only thing they know. And so, yeah, gut the Department of Education.
Can't disagree with you there. One thing that just reminded me of, too, is even Doug Burgum talked about this a little bit as well in terms of our DOE and three-letter agencies. I believe it was him. Talked about how he said, like, we have 10 million jobs, and if we were to get rid of like a lot of these federal bureaucracies, then we could have people go into those jobs in the private sector and thus create more taxes. I think it might have been him. And I just thought that was a fascinating take as well. Okay, guys, I've been here obviously live for almost 4 hours. I've been at work for about 8 to 9. Any final thoughts about the debate? Any last things you guys want to add?
I just want to say I was just overall, I know I mentioned this before, but the solidarity of them was really cool. I like to see
the end, absolutely. Yeah.
At the end, and even through the whole thing, they were very focused on kind of working together in some aspects, really focusing on building a coalition to not only fix the country, take down Biden, but kind of take down Trump too. I think that was fascinating. I think overall, I mean, and I know I'm biased. I'll admit I'm biased, but I think overall winner was DeSantis. He did a phenomenal job. He came out swinging a little more. I think I even put in one of my things, I said, commanding the stage and demanding attention, because every time he spoke, everyone just got silent and looked at him. And I think that says a lot. Even when Vivek said, I agree with Ron here. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Alex, any final thoughts?
No, I just saw a post from one of my buddies who was talking about how they're at the very end where they're like, oh, so who are we voting off the stage? Who's going to have to abandon ship? Who are we voting off the ship? And DeSantis took over the spotlight and the crowd went crazy and applauded for him, saying it's disrespectful, which is the complete opposite of what Trump would have said. Trump would have been like, oh, well, he doesn't deserve to be here. And we saw a little bit of that there. And so it was good. Another, just like Josh said, DeSantis, he had it in the bag. He swung a little more, but yeah.
Absolutely. Mitch, any final thoughts?
So I can't really pick who I thought won until I watched the whole thing. So I'm doing that after work. But in all, from what I saw, I definitely thought it was pretty disrespectful for them to even ask who would you vote off. But then I loved the reception and the response that DeSantis gave of, we're not going to do that. Don't ask us that. And then my personal opinion, I don't think that Trump has as good of a chance as he thinks he has until he actually goes out and talks to these people on a stage himself.
Yeah, I got you. Well, everybody, who do you think won the debate? Leave it in the comments. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like the shirt I'm wearing, Cancel Culture, you guys can go to unitedmerch.com and get your own. Use code Speechless to check out for 20% off. You can get this one. They got a bunch of other great American conservative made in America t-shirts and other merch. So go check it out. UnitedMerch.com. Use code Speechless to check out for 20% off. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the coverage. Do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, and share it with your friends. Any of my videos, go check them all out. God bless you guys. God bless America. And until next time, you've been watching Speechless.